I'd like to welcome you out to City Council meeting today. It is May 17th at 6 o'clock. Call this meeting to order. We're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance and opening prayer. We were going to have Councilman Campbell give us a Pledge of Allegiance, but I'd like for one of you young men to lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance. I have a volunteer. You want me to name one of you? Go ahead. Let's all rise.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have Todd Sands give us opening prayer.
Heavenly Father, we are just thankful for your kingdom, for your creation. We're thankful that you are the sovereign Lord. We're thankful that we can meet here this evening. We ask that you would bless us all, that you would give us guidance, give us your wisdom, help us to make wise and prudent decisions this evening that will benefit not only the city but our residents. We are thankful that our lakes and streams, reservoirs are starting to fill back up. Help us to get out of this drought for the next few years. We are thankful that you are always on scene and in charge. We lift up our prayers to you, and it's in your Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Todd. Do we have any other statement of belief that anyone would like to share with us this evening? All right, we're going to move on to approval of our agenda and declaration of any kind of declaration of conflict. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, Mayor. Sorry, we have a motion and a second. All right. Everybody approve?
All right.
All right. Let me get my head on here. All right. Disclosure of conflicts. Do we have any this evening?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to disclose in item number 3 that I am friends and neighbors with Nicole Baker, and that we bought a lot and they built our house.
Okay.
And I need to disclose the fact that I operate a nightly rental in town.
Mayor, I need to disclose that I represent a party that intends to file for a nightly rental development if that ordinance is passed.
Anything else? All right, we'll move on to our consent agenda. We have meeting minutes from May 3rd, regular business meeting, and we have possible approval of city expenditures. Anybody see the new city minutes, the way they're being recorded now? Just for the public's awareness, instead of typing out word for word on the minutes, everything is recorded video now that you can actually go to each item and click on the video. It goes right to YouTube, and you can listen to the exact wording of what it was said by those who said it. So instead of having to interpret what was typed out, you actually get to listen to it live. So not really live, but recorded. So and it works really nice for Daisy. It's a lot easier for doing the minutes, and it's a lot cleaner in my opinion. So that has been changed. So if you guys would, the minutes, I think it'll be a lot easier to review now. Anyway, so that's where I'm at now for approval of the minutes.
So those minutes we access them by YouTube?
Correct. And then in addition to that, though, they still will have what the motions were. They still have what the agenda item is, what the motion is. We're doing them just like Washington City. So they still have the information of who came to the pulpit to speak on,
Okay, so we can archive them using YouTube?
And if you click on the link, the cool thing about what we're doing is when you click on the actual link, it takes you to the exact spot in the meeting. So if it happened at, an hour and 53 minutes in, you click that link and you're right on that agenda item. So you don't have to spend all this time at home if you really only care about one item. You can so you see right there, and it'll just jump to that part of the meeting.
Okay, so
it'll be super helpful for the public.
on SharePoint, so the meeting minutes still going to be on SharePoint?
Yeah, this is exactly, if you look up here, they'll still be on, the meeting minutes will still be on SharePoint the same way. If you look at this, see how it says it'll say, there was an error on business item 3, TDS is replaced by InfoWest, Mayor SIP, so you'll still have information of what happened and who voted. The main change that we're making is the YouTube link that links directly to the part of the meeting where that happened. So,
Okay, and then when you look for the minutes, it only goes to April. So if somebody wants minutes,
and yeah, she'll get them uploaded.
okay, so I mean, the listing doesn't, there's only so much that's listed. And then after that it ends. So basically you go to YouTube after that if you want to see
Yeah,
it.
you can go to YouTube after that, or you can call the city. We do it. Yeah, we do it all the time. It's fine. Let me just tell you the link.
Okay, just as long as everybody knows how to.
Access the
Review it.
minutes.
Yeah, and this will be way easier for people to just click on it rather than be like, hey, what meeting did they talk about and what part? And then they're scrolling
Agreed.
through everything to get to one thing. So
Excellent.
way more helpful for the public
Mhm.
to include that link.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daisy, for getting the minutes to us prior to, so we have time to go over it. Absolutely. So I make a motion that we approve the minutes from May 3rd.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
All right.
All right, we are on city expenditures.
There you go. Thank you.
City expenditures.
Mayor, I reviewed those and I moved to approve them for April 2023.
Motion, a second. Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Mayor, you should do a roll call on that.
Oh, that's right. It's a roll call. We're spending money. We'll start with you, Chuck, and work our way down.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, approved. All right, we're moving right along. We're on business. Item D1, Resolution 2023 Uniform Fee Schedule to update the encroachment permit application fee.
This is just, it's pretty, you'll see the fee schedule in front of you again. We had our encroachment permit, the fee was $25. After looking at like staff time to review and all of that, it actually needs to be the same as our other applications, which is $250, not $25.
I was just going through that and we're keeping, basically, we're keeping $3 of square foot per.
Correct. And then you've got a $7 per square foot refund.
Goes back.
Can you pull up the permit?
And so that's why I was curious. And then we're also asking for a $10,000 surety bond. And then we're holding the $7 a square foot as a cash bond. We're asking for a surety bond. And then now we're going to bump the fee to $250 and keep the $3.
Yeah, the $3 is non-refundable.
I
Yep.
saw that. So a little much.
It's pretty in
No,
line.
that's
It's
standard.
been what it's been that way for probably close to 15 years.
The only thing we changed was the application fee.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, the $250 versus the $25.
Yep.
I'm just bringing up the point that we are still charging them $3 a square foot.
Yeah.
And we keep
And it's pretty standard with what we've got in Washington, Hurricane, different cities. It's been that way. Like I say, I don't know that that's been updated for quite some time.
So the 250 is just for the amount of labor it takes to get through the process for staff, right? I mean, that's basically,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
okay. All right, any more discussion on this item? I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
A motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item D2, discuss some possible action, resolution 2023, discharge of fireworks to designated and specific locations and times to discharge fireworks within city limits. Yeah, we have certain dates and times and places, so this is,
Yeah, this is the same that we do every year.
Yep.
It keeps, just adjusts the dates, but it's still the same hours, the 7 PM to 11 PM. It gives you them for the 4th of July and the 24th. The same locations for lighting them off, with Trail Ridge and Center Street Park. The fire department cannot guarantee that they will be here for that, but we intend to have water trucks available and they'll get here, obviously as soon as they can. But yeah, it's the same resolution as every year.
Is there a reason why we don't have West Coast parking there?
We just haven't.
I just-
If
I
it's
mean,
something
for
that-
all the parks, it's just dirt. That'd be a pretty easy place to do
yeah,
it.
we talked about that
Well,
last year.
It got changed last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it went back to the city. I'm worried about water.
And the
Water access.
Fire department, where last year when they were changing
Somebody
it, they just said because the fire department couldn't guarantee that they would be here.
And I just think about the locations and we've got them down by the creek. I
Yeah.
have one and then we have one out in the middle of nowhere with dirt everywhere. Interesting. That'd be a pretty
It's up to you guys. You can discuss it. And
I would be fine with adding Westfields Park to that.
You want to add it or use it as a substitute for the city center?
I'm just add it.
3 locations.
On number 3, Who's enforcing it?
Yeah.
Afton.
Our code enforcement.
What court enforcement? Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Well,
Who's,
part of that
who's the
probably
enforcement for number three?
gives us the ability to find them.
Yes,
they're
if they
all department
come-
on the
yeah.
outside of it, now we have a.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, that's, yeah, it's about, that's, it's gonna.
Right.
So the sheriff's
It'll
gonna,
sheriff.
so the sheriff's gonna come if one of our residents calls because they're shooting off fireworks at 1 a.m?
They're supposed to be.
Chuck, or Gary, do you see a reason to not do it out there? I mean, we have fire protection, there's hydrants there.
We decided to do it there last year. For some reason, I think it was fire department or something, it got canceled and moved over to the city park. And I don't recall why.
Well,
But we could add it.
yeah, Mayor, you ready for a motion?
I am.
I'd approve the resolution for the fireworks, the discharge of fireworks, but I would like to add to the list of parks, that it would be Trail Ridge Estates Park, Center Street Park, and Westfields Park.
Second.
All right, I have a motion, a second.
Let's just hope that none of the fireworks at the center, at Westfield Park light our shade structure on fire. If we burn down that shade structure, I'll be really sad.
Okay, we won't do that. Any other discussion?
Do we have them take it down, do you think, for that?
I actually forgot that we have
Shades.
That shade structure is,
That's a lot of
does
money.
campus light on fire?
Oh,
Seems
yeah.
like it would just,
I forgot that was out there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna amend my motion to Trail Ridge Estates and Center Street Park.
Okay, as written.
Yes.
So how's your second now?
Second.
All right, further discussion. Thank you, Afton. All in favor?
Aye. Okay, let's see if
That's
the,
money.
let's see if the boys were listening, because they're the ones that are gonna be lighting fireworks.
their moms will keep them in line.
Look on the website for the city so you know what the dates are. They'll have it right up there on your website.
All right, item 3, discuss the possible action on amended final plat application submitted by Nicole Baker, located at Trail Ridge Estate, Phase 2, Lot 38. So I believe this is just yeah, we're just changing lot shape, if I'm reading that right.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so Nicole Baker submitted an amended final plat application. Staff has reviewed the application and it has been found complete according to Title 10, Chapter 19, Article C, Section 4 of Tokerville City Code. Additionally, it's been submitted to the city surveyor who has reviewed it.
So Riker, it seems like that's where the back of that lot right now is a hill that's been cut. Is that the right lot? That's in the right spot? Is there a walking trail on top of that? Okay.
Yes.
There might be it's not part of the.
Yes, there is.
It's not part of the subdivision right now, so it's not a trail and part of the development agreement or anything such as that.
As long as we verify that, because I know that we had a trail system that was laid out on a planned road that went along that ridge. And it just was-
And it talks about that in the phase 3. So this is phase 2. All they are doing is amending that back lot. In phase 3, it was the phase, the final amenities, and we've talked about that. The applicant is not here tonight, but I don't know exactly why, but they were here at Planning Commission, and they plan on coming in with the next phase within the next couple months. And at that point, we need to review with every new phase submittal. We will review the development agreement and make sure that they are in compliance with each amenity with each phase. As you remember, phase 1 included the most improvements, such as the park and a lot of the things there. So phase 2 they had a very small improvement. So that's where we will request things and make sure that things are as per the development agreement.
Okay. You have more questions, Ty? Anybody have any?
I got one, just on the surveyor's report that came back. I know the planning commission approved it based on the surveyor's report. So there's a lot of red lines in there. Does that need to be
really-
adapted, or does the planning commission got to look at that again, or what does that mean?
No, so really what you're looking at there are just the red lines that the surveyor had. That's part of his review. It's a standard review every time. He will, when they will, the process now is they will resubmit another plat with the corrections that the surveyor has requested. And then the surveyor will review that once again to make sure that those changes were made, that everything is closing, that all of the verbiage is correct. And then before it finally gets recorded, the city attorney goes through and makes sure that all of the legal verbiage is correct, as well as ownerships. What you're seeing there in those red lines is kind of part of the process.
Pretty common.
Yep.
All right. Need a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. Have a motion and a second, I have a couple seconds here. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 4, discuss some possible action of ordinance 2023 agricultural zone A.5 to establish a half-acre minimum lot for agricultural use.
Mayor, the Planning Commission has put an ordinance before you. They recommended approval of a draft ordinance. It amends Chapter 9 of Title 10 of the Tocqueville City Code to add an agricultural half-acre zone. Staff provided the draft with the changes that were recommended by the Planning Commission for this. So I think quite a few members of council have had the opportunity to watch that Planning Commission meeting or attended it. So the discussion is before you. They've included a table. That was one of the things that they wanted to see. And then the uses. So it's open to you for discussion. When you're in the middle of the discussion, I will say, Daisy, we're going to use that exempt map from the landscape ordinance, the proposed exempt map. So if you get in Planning Commission's folder for the exempt map, we'll use that for some discussion. So what that part is, what we've done is there's a landscape ordinance that is still in Planning Commission, but that will be making its way to council. And in that, there's in order to maintain green spaces, basically, we have created a map that will be exempt from the landscape ordinance. This is that map. It includes obviously quite a bit of Tocqueville. And in this, the ag land that's been totaled up, there are about 120 lots in that exempt map. 53 of those are undeveloped and unbuilt. Yeah, this is just for reference only. This is not an approved map. And there are 67 of these lots that have been built out. So if you want to start with the ordinance, your review, your discussion, maybe looking at the permitted uses, and then we'll talk about one of the main things that Planning Commission debated back and forth was whether dwellings, if a half-acre ag land lot, if this ordinance is approved and we now have half-acre ag land, will there be the ability to have a dwelling on that half-acre? That was one of the main discussions. It was recommended to not put a dwelling on there. I'm not sure what the feeling of all council is on there. I personally am I don't see the reason to not put a house on it. Stacy Eaton felt that way. The rest of the commission voted that they thought that there shouldn't be a dwelling on there. So that's kind of what we're talking about. So Daisy, if you want to pull up the ordinance and we'll just get started with the ordinance.
We can start there real quick.
Yeah, that's it. Just it's open
Half
for
acre
discussion.
ag. I'm not sure why there's a lot of cities that have half acre ag land that have houses on them. Washington City's one. I believe Santa Clara City is one. Which, Riker, you've got quite a few cities that have half acre with ag with a house.
There's, I believe it's Santa Clara, Hurricane, La Verkin, and Washington City.
Okay.
I mean, why was there such a conversation about not putting a dwelling on half?
Well, the reasoning behind it was thinking is we have a half-acre residential currently, or you can be zoned residential and have the animal rights and be able to do the things. And so how is this different than what they can already do? You can split off the land, have a half-acre, build a house, and have it zoned residential.
So, and I think the reason for this is if you change it to R120, then you lose the ag right, then you lose the water, the ag water. So,
And the other perception is on a half-acre, if you're building a house, there's not a lot of land for agriculture. That's your purpose.
but if you go by the new ordinance for the landscape, you have like a minimum of 1,500 square
These
feet
will
of.
be exempt from that, so it
It-
won't
it
matter.
Well,
won't
some
be.
will. No,
Yeah.
not
Some of
all.
it- some
Daisy,
of
this
it,
is where
no.
you'll need to pull them
Yeah,
out.
that's the issue. If you take it out of ag and you put it into regular residential, then we can lose the ag water, the green. Well, well, what it's gonna-
The only way to use
yeah.
that ag water is the only meters that are ag are 2-inch and larger.
Well,
Is that what you're?
no, the way I'm looking at it is the Water Conservancy District wants us to do a restricted water usage. You know, they
So
want us to
the
take-
debate is that so this is the debate. So the water district, because we're part of the regional water supply agreement, we are the only city that has not passed a landscape ordinance. So we do have to pass some sort of a version of that because we are part of the regional water supply agreement. Currently, the standard is 0.89 acre feet per year, right? The new standard, according to the district and the landscape ordinance, is 0.59. All new building permits will be required to be held to a 0.59 acre feet per year standard. So what we've done is the same thing that Santa Clara did. Yeah, so this exactly, unless they're ag, and then they're exempt from that. So the intent would be to keep as much ag land in the city as we can. But outside of that, what we've done is the same thing that Santa Clara has done, and we've created this map that will accompany and Hurricane's done one too, Lavercan did one, and we've created this map that anywhere that is inside of there, if there is a lot in there that has not been developed yet, when they come in to pull a building permit, even though it is a new build, it will be exempt from that 0.59 standard. That allows us to keep Tokerville green and all of that. So
The purpose of this would be if somebody bought a piece of ground that's already identified as agricultural land, they could buy a half acre parcel from inside the agricultural ground and they could put
a home on it.
a home in it, or they could own that piece.
Right.
This isn't so that you can take a half acre lot
Well-
anywhere in town.
Let's
and
talk
turn it
about
No, no.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's say
No.
someone
Yeah.
wants to split 5 acres, 5 ag acres into 10 parcels. What's the process for that?
Subdivision.
Okay, what is our landscape ordinance going to say for subdivision? It has
So
to
they
be-
can,
it has to
and
be
your point
meets
is they
and
can,
bounds,
with
which
that,
they're
they
going to
can,
have to meet the new requirement no matter what,
unless they're inside that map, and then they're exempt.
unless they're inside. the-
Right.
so we would
Unless
allow
they're-
for a brand new subdivision with half acre lots to all be agricultural.
If it stays agricultural.
Right, Joey? That's what.
Would
you're
that-
looking at.
You're going to have to do a simple subdivision, and Darren might have to back up on this. To do 10 lots, you're going to have to do a simple subdivision, and it's going to have to go on meets and bounds. It's going to have to be recorded plat.
No.
right?
No, so
No.
you can still come in and, when you do a subdivision, we would require roadways. In your ordinance of the zoning ordinance for both zones, you have minimum frontage on a dedicated road. You have those types of things. But yes, you do have the opportunity to be able to create flag lots, and that type of thing, where you can have, but your minimum frontage is gonna be just.
Doesn't the ordinance, the water ordinance say that if you create a subdivision, right, if you're going to create a subdivision, all new subdivisions are now. part of
Unless
the
they're part of the map,
Yeah,
unless they're part of our exempt map.
exemption. Let's say you're gonna do an ag land out of the exemption. If you're in the exemption, you're covered regardless.
Right.
Doesn't matter. If you're outside of the exemption.
You are correct. You're correct.
But-
Back to the water supply.
You create that, and have half acre lots, and even if you move to subdivision, you don't have to rezone. You wouldn't have to rezone.
You wouldn't have to do
But
the
you wouldn't
rezone.
go, even if you created correct me if I'm wrong.
Building a new building permit.
But what I'm saying is, let's say you're outside of that map in any of the green area, right? Let's say you're one of those parcels outside of the exempt area, and you want to go ahead and make that into a 10-lot subdivision. You're not, if houses are allowed in ag, you're not going to have to rezone that to residential.
So you're saying that we can create a subdivision in Tokerville and create it to be zoned agricultural only and not R120.
If it's already agricultural land.
Agricultural, If it's this
That-
0.05, see, that's why Washington Cities is called residential agricultural. No, I'm serious.
So really though, you wouldn't have, you'd still, you need to change that to allow houses to be built on the half acre ags. Right now, what's proposed does
What's
not.
before you, yeah, what
So,
the
yeah.
planning commission recommended
you
is
are-
half acre ag, no.
But my question is, say we have a bunch of 1 acre ag lots and there's a home on it, and they want to sell off a half an acre. Now they're non-conforming ag land. So we've got a bunch of citizens that say they want to sell part of their land. They don't want to put a house on it. They just want to sell it. So does that make them non-conforming?
Well,
Is that-
Well,
so,
yeah,
so
if
yeah,
you're gonna,
it's a case by
yes.
case basis,
Right.
basically, but so
But if we had this zone, then they could just sell off a half acre.
You'd have to rezone.
They wouldn't have to rezone if it was already ag.
no, it would
they'd
not
have to
be
rezone
ag
from the
half
ag
acre.
1 to ag 0.5.
Correct.
Okay,
You have to get your 1 acre rezoned to
half acre.
half
Half
acre and then
And both resulting parcels would have to be half acre. And then they both would have to have frontage on a dedicated road.
If they wanted to build a home on it,
Yes.
if someone wanted to put a home on it.
Yes.
and our concern is they reduce the amount of frontage. I know the planning commission also discussed a concern about, we didn't want to create a situation where we would proliferate the problem, I wouldn't say problem, but with flag lots.
Right.
And so the thinking was with prohibiting residences, this would incentivize someone who's got an adjacent parcel to possibly purchase other half acre that's adjacent, but not necessarily have the need for an access across that or a flag so that, a pole of a flag that has frontage so that you could actually build.
Because you
residences.
could have access to those back lot or that back half acre from a different place
Right.
than where the existing
Absolutely.
has frontage now. So yeah, there's a ton of scenarios there. Some of them involve a flag lot scenario. Some of them would not. Just depends on what they're trying to do. So if somebody wanted to come in and do a subdivision that has half acre homes on it and still keep it in the ag, then it'd make more sense to keep it go for a ag half acre rather than an R120, because R120 would pull you out of that,
Out of
and
the
you'd be
ag.
and then you would be required to go to the 0.59 new water standard. And you still have a half acre of ground.
So just because I'm a simple mind, they would not be able to skip the zoning process.
That's correct. They would still have to.
All that this ordinance does is creates a new zone that no property in the city has yet to been zoned to that yet.
It's a brand new zone, so anybody that wants to do it is going to
Have to
have to
apply
come to it.
for
Apply.
rezoning. And then if they want to split it, they're going to have to ask for a simple subdivision too.
Yeah, we've or a lot split.
Or a lot
We're
split.
trying to.
Yeah, that's what I mean, a lot split.
Do that.
We've been talking about that.
Mm, those were
Yes.
Yeah.
for 2 lots.
So what's the reason that this is on the agenda? Is there some issue
We've
that,
had a few people in the community ask for this, and to have some sort of that. Afton brings up a very good reason to bring it up, so that we keep it in an ag use rather than commercial or a residential use, and keep more of a green field, keep
This is-
this rural feel that we have.
The point is this: I drew this out at planning commission, but if you have 10 lots across here, and the guy in the middle wants to take his 1 acre and switch that out and put 2 houses on it, they're going to do it anyway. All they're going to do is rezone that property to residential and put 2 houses on it, right? So if they're going to do that to get 2 houses, we might as well consider letting them split their in half and still keep it ag and put 2 houses on it.
I agree, there's
So-
another element of that, which is Pocketville is full of older citizens that have grown up farming, right? They have big parcels of ground, and now they're not farming as much, they're cutting their yard place down because they can't maintain it. And that could continue into the future with allowing it to stay in ag, and somebody else buy that property, keep it in ag, you can keep that moving forward versus it just getting split and going into a subdivision. I mean,
Okay.
and I share that because I have that situation is, if you look at that little funky green piece, that it's kind of all alone coming off the red line down in Choya. That's in my backyard, and that's where the Bergerman's 5 acres was, and that has stayed in ag. And like Handsome's and those people that have been right in there, those lots have gotten smaller as they've needed to get rid of more of it because they can't maintain it any longer.
okay, so with the water, residential, if you total up the residential hours that are allowed for rationing and compare it to the ag hours, the residentials actually have more time than the ags do. So I'm trying to figure out,
Because they have so much.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's gonna be a little different because an ag connection by definition on our sheet is defined by a 2-inch service line. It's the only way you can have ag waters to be on a 2-inch service line. Everything under that is in a residential water. So this would end up being, even though it's in an ag zone, it would end up being still on the residential schedule. You would have a 1-inch meter, not a 2-inch meter.
okay, so the schedule is based upon the pipe size.
Size was, absolutely.
Okay, any more discussion?
One thing I see, another
Yep.
thing is, so if we look at the physical restrictions, the setbacks, all that stuff, it's the same as R-120, right?
Right.
If we look, and every restriction on here is still the same as R-120, and I don't know exactly where it's at, but they're gonna, they wanna use the animal ordinance. So this .5 act will have to have the same animal ordinance as all the residential. Right, so.
I would agree with that because agricultural use
Well,
of
that's
animals
in-
is
that's in
completely
here.
different.
Right.
Right.
So now we have an R-120 and a .05 ag that are both identical.
But they're not.
They're not.
Because they're listed as residential.
They're not. One you can, as this is proposed right now, one you can build a dwelling, have a residence on. This one you cannot.
But if we do put a resident on it,
Then it would be very close. I told them we have to allow for residential facilities for elderly persons and residential facilities for persons with a disability if we allow residences. And I explained to the planning commission, if you wanted to keep that as not allowed, dwellings not allowed, then that's why they added those two not allows on the table. Too, because if you're not going to allow a dwelling there, you don't have to allow those types of dwellings. They're also, so it would be different in some senses, the uses, and they wanted, I know that the planning commission went to great length discussing each of these to try to say, there's got to be a distinguishment, why you would have this in lieu of, and I think Afton hit it the best when she said, it is an option, and the benefit is the option of keeping it agricultural instead of going residential. So, my thoughts.
So I need examples so I can understand better sometimes. So I've got a acre of agriculture with a house on it, but I can't maintain it all, so I want to get rid of a half an acre and sell it to my neighbor who has an acre of ag also. So he can buy that and use that for his agriculture, add to his, what he's doing.
You could do that, yes.
Yes.
Okay. So
If this ordinance.
if this
passes.
ordinance passes, okay.
Not, You're
They
stuck
couldn't,
with half an
they
acre
couldn't
that you can't
build, they couldn't build a
But-
second home.
Right, but they can't build a house on it. So
But
basically
they
all
could
they're
put
doing is.
barn and farm structures and
Okay.
agricultural
But
structures
you
and stuff like
couldn't,
that.
you couldn't sell a half an acre because the home now, if you're not gonna let a house on a half acre would not be
Right, they
conformed.
can't do that right now.
Right.
Right, I got
Even
that
if the
part.
ordinance passes, if there isn't a dwelling allowed on it, what he's saying is, if there's a house on the front in the exact scenario you said, if
Right.
there's a house on the front and you've got a half acre in the back and you want to chop it in half and sell that to your neighbor,
Yep.
you currently cannot do that
Right.
because you would have to rezone the front
Right.
into half acre ag. But you
Half
can't rezone into half acre ag because
Right.
you have a house on
No,
half acre.
I
ag.
understand that part. I was just trying to think why somebody would.
So
wanna
the
do this.
potential, so you really wouldn't be able to rezone
Okay.
because you can't rezone to non-conforming. If there's a house on the front and the back half is gonna get.
It would be,
sold off.
it would be a legal non-conforming
Correct.
use.
Okay.
So you wouldn't be, yeah, it would be a non-conforming structure, but it would be a legal non-conforming
Yeah,
structure.
there you go.
Frankly, whoever that is then would have to come out of agricultural zone as it's defined now anyways.
Yes.
Because if you take it
Yes.
from 1 acre down to half acre, they'd have to
That's
come
where,
out.
that's my entire point in saying it's
Saying,
it's
let a house be built on ag land.
allowing the smaller gives you an alternative to someone saying, well, I've got to rezone it to R120. No, you don't have to actually to do what you're talking about. You can rezone it to an A.5.
Any other questions?
So I just want to make sure. So you're telling me I can go do 20 lot subdivision and keep it in?
Yeah.
If it's already in ag,
Hey,
If this exists.
look, if you had 20 acres and in our current A1 zone, you could do a 20 lot subdivision, 1 acre lots in the ag zone. Absolutely.
As long as the roads and everything
Yeah, as
came
long as
out.
you've got roads and stuff like that, so those lots have frontage on a public road and stuff like that, you can do it in an ag zone.
Mayor, I need to disclose that I actually have this exact situation in my backyard. So just a heads up. I find out this is going on. So now that we're into
One thing
it,
I think
I
we should
got,
put back in is we should probably put the public quasi buildings. I think that needs to go back and implemented, because there could be a need for the city to do.
well, the city may want to keep it in ag, keep the area in ag to do
But
it
I'd still
anyways.
be able to. put certain standards.
So the farmer's market often wants to sell eggs for the city. So
make some revenue.
Put that back implemented.
Okay, what about,
I'm totally fine changing that.
They were concerned with things like the concept of quasi-public building. But I that was planning commission's concern. I did express that clearly we don't have this as a defined term in our ordinance, but it does say for essential public services. Because the question became, what about a charter school? What about a private church? Something like that. Would those be quasi-public buildings? Yes, but are they for essential public services? And there was a little bit of a disagreement with those types of things. But I agree.
The reason we.
We intentionally put that into every zone
Every
within,
zone,
Mhm.
so
so
that the
that
city
we,
was never non-conforming.
right,
The city could not be in a non-conforming.
Right.
so what changes are we,
That's the one change I see, for sure.
I would be more in line with changing those. So the public to permit it, I would also change the residential facility to permit it as well.
Permitted or conditional use? It should be.
It wouldn't matter to me. I'm fine with it either way, as long as there's an option for it.
But,
You could leave this
But
conditional
do-
use and then they'd have to come in and apply for the conditions.
but that wouldn't that entail us allowing a single family dwelling to go in the half acre
You
also?
could, absolutely.
Well, no, but I didn't mean if, let's say we voted not to put the single family dwelling in it. then
I think the
how
planning
is that
commission
part?
felt like a residential facility for the disabled, like a youth facility or something like that. If they weren't going to allow residences, they wouldn't.
If I'm not mistaken, I don't think it matters. I think the elderly persons has to be in every zone. Also.
Every zone where
Yeah.
where residences are allowed,
Right.
and that's where
Same with disability.
Yeah, same thing with disability. And so the point was they felt like on a half acre that becomes awfully small. They could see why that would be a difference and be a conditional use or conditional use with standards in an ag 1, but they felt like ag 0.5 was too small to do.
but if it's in every residential,
Well, let me ask you this, is why do we even have the setbacks? Like, why would we even have setbacks?
if you're not putting a house, if you're not going to put a house on
It's
it,
just 0.5 with no structure. I mean, I guess. if
Well,
there
for
was a
structures.
barn,
For structures,
Okay.
farm structures. Yeah.
So the big question is whether we want this lot. Number 2, whether we want it with houses.
Mhm.
Number 3, without houses.
Yeah, planning commission put a lot of thought into it, didn't they? Yeah.
And why shall we-
I'm kind of leaning toward what the planning commission recommended to us.
But if,
So here's my problem with it. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Gary.
so if we pass it without houses, is Afton saying somebody can still get around and get a house?
they could split their lot into R120.
Come in and
Put a
rezone
house.
to residential.
We lose the ag part of it.
If somebody has an acre of ag and they want to put a house on it or 2 houses on it, if they want to put 2 houses on it, they're just going to come in and rezone to residential. So if you're going to allow them to rezone to residential, why wouldn't you let them split their ag land in half and put a house on each parcel?
Okay,
If I
so that's
owned
what
an
I'm
acre
saying.
of
If
ag
we,
land and
if
I
we-
wanted 2 houses, me, my child, I would just come in and rezone it to residential to get my goal.
So if
They
I,
gotta rezone it to something, I just don't see the difference of residential or ag, with the same setbacks, the same requirements, the same animal control, and hardly any actual use of ag land on an R one
If
twenty.
they're outside of the exempt map, they keep the agricultural, I mean,
They,
that's
they
why.
do, but then we're just going against, exactly against the water conservatory portion of it too, right? We're just.
Well, we're trying to maintain the
Trying to
green
keep it green and-
resident agricultural.
Like to see, we're
history of
doing our own
Tocqueville.
thing, Joey. We're controlling our own destiny.
Maybe a little bit from here.
That's working.
Look
at that.
Oh, there's San Juan.
Yeah, up. There you go. You're getting there. There's ag.
Gilbert's.
That is, that's Gilbert's. Looking for your house?
Yeah, so this little piece right here, so this is Hansom's piece. They own an acre, right? So their piece came all the way back to here. That's my home. I purchased this half acre from them. So if we don't allow for the agriculture, then they would have to come out of the agricultural and we'd have to do it. They would change from, because it's ag 1 acre right now. Or they could stay in agricultural. I could stay in agricultural. And they would still, so no change to them and they could break that piece off.
But existing homes are good. It
Gonna
doesn't,
stay.
it doesn't exist. None
What I'm
of,
saying is
none
if
of
we
them.
change
You couldn't
this to
add
half
a,
acre,
you couldn't add a house, but it would be an existing
So, but this now is
non-conforming
a,
use.
but with this change, it could be it would be a conforming
Conforming,
use
right.
versus being a non-conforming use.
But that house would not all of a sudden have to go to 0.59. It's existing.
But it would allow it to be a legal way to do it versus a grandfathered way in, is my point, right? So then any of those older homes that have been around for a while that wanted to split it off, they could make that option to sell half an acre off, keep their half acre and still be in agricultural, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Where if you don't allow for dwelling on it, they don't have that option. If they choose to sell that piece, now they're under 1 acre. This has to go to R120, not
No.
agriculture ground. Yeah, R120, and then this piece would obviously be R120 as well.
Well, it'd be a non-conforming.
be a non-conforming.
Pre-existing
Yeah,
non-conforming.
but
What I'm
if-
saying, moving
for
into the
future,
They
future.
couldn't do it. That's my point. They wouldn't be able to do that. Right, because then we'd be allowing the
Non-conforming
non-conforming use,
use.
and they would need to come out of the agricultural zone.
Right.
So, I mean, they're all over town.
The only two options is if they're gonna split that lot is, the one could probably stay ag because you can tie onto yours and keep the minimum usage land, right? So the back half can stay ag. Front half, he would either go R120 and or he would go to this zone.
But then they would have to come in and do a zone
They would have to
change
do
to
a zone change
switch it
no matter
out.
Yeah, on either one.
And they
they'd
would
have to
come
do a
out of
zone change.
agriculture.
Well, they would do a zone change. If this allowed houses, they would do a zone change back to this.
To R1, to the half acre ag.
And or R120.
And they
That's
could
the
stay.
only two options.
So here is a section of town. This is down here by the bridge. Gets to work. This is Westfield Bridge. This is Westfield Road. All the way down here to Lake Lane. Up here, this is all minimum 1 acre ag land. So Joey, your house is right here.
Sure.
Public knowledge, public knowledge.
I know the toilet paper's coming tonight.
These homes here are all 1 acre ag minimum. So if someone wanted, there's no access, but if someone wanted to sell off a chunk of their land, and my house is right here, just so everybody knows, so if someone wanted to sell a piece of this desert back here, they would have to take themselves out of ag land here. So if you made these lots here could go to half acre, these pastures here. Morgan Jensen, he's still alive, but he won't be here for long. And his kids are going to sell this and they're going to subdivide it. Do we want to see this go into a whole bunch of half acre or quarter acre lots, or would rather see half acre ag land? Everybody loves these fields, but they're not going to be fields forever. But if we let somebody have half acre ag land, we might end up with still have some nice green areas here. So there's lots of spots. There's spots over here in Old Town, old downtown Tocqueville that
Mr.
still have
Mayor,
ag.
With that example, you're advocating that we recommend them to put a house.
Put a
on it.
dwelling, yes,
Okay.
because you can't, if you don't let them go to a dwelling, then these houses can't sell off the back half of their lot because now they have to go to R120. They can't stay in. If you're not going to let it put a house on a half acre, then they can't sell off a half acre without changing to R120. So they lose their ag
But they can,
because
but if we approve it
With a
without
house.
without a house, they can sell the land just to be-
after they sell, they have to rezone their home to R120, and then now
Yeah.
they're out of their ag zone.
Also know though that all existing homes are not going to fall under the new
Right.
regulation.
You're right.
Only a new home can fall under the new regulation.
Can you read like the definition of agriculture? Because I feel like by splitting it so small, it negates the definition of ag to begin with.
That's people's debate, and we have Hurricane City, Hurricane City, Washington City. They all allow for a half acre ag with a home, and we're trying to maintain our rural agricultural land and still have
One of the
people
main
build
goals of the
homes.
general plan is to preserve ag land.
Exactly.
That's the whole point is, do you want to preserve ag land by letting people build a house, or do you want them to rezone to residential? Or that's really it.
Right. So there's the question. Do we allow a house on it, or do we not allow a house on it?
Well, if you don't allow a house on it, Afton's saying someone can still end up
That's
putting a
right.
house on it.
Putting two houses on, yeah.
So-
But it's gonna be a residential.
Residential.
zone.
It will
Right.
be a residential zone instead of agricultural.
And Joey's point is basically the same. You
Right.
know,
But one has the ag. Right. And the ag, and it's actually on your taxes. You get a little bit of a tax break if you're in ag versus residential. Not much, but it is a break. So there we're at. There's we have.
When we talked, and I didn't go research all of them, just to say that, St. George is the only one that got brought up.
Right.
And I'm trying to look them up. Laverton does not have a 0.5 that I can find, so maybe that means this.
Right
It's
there.
under residential agricultural
Okay.
is the title of
Yeah,
the zone.
residential ag,
And that's the same for Hurricane.
Hurricane and Washington City.
Then
Yep.
yes.
So, and St. George, honestly, I don't really care what St. George does. I don't want to be St. George. So we do things a little different over here. So, I mean, that's,
They don't allow homes.
yeah. So I'm looking for a motion, one way or the other.
Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve the ordinance with the modifications to the public or quasi-public to permitted residential facilities for elderly persons and residential facilities for persons with disabilities. So allow a residential dwelling to permitted use in those areas. So it'd be a modification to the table, changing those three permitted.
From NA to
Well-
permitted.
To permitted use, yeah, that's what I mentioned.
What about dwelling single family?
Yeah, the one up here.
There's a motion,
NA.
so-
Sorry,
Gotta do a
and the
motion
dwelling
first.
single family.
Okay.
You gotta do the motion and then discussion.
Yes, that's the motion.
Yes,
Sorry, Daisy, you can have the control back.
Yes, to include a single family dwelling as a permitted use as well.
Okay, so I have a motion. Well, Stacy just sent me a text, sorry. I'm looking for a second.
You
Oh,
cannot
sorry.
do that during a meeting.
Oh, sorry. That was just running our planning and zoning. My apologies. Okay. No second?
Second.
Oh, we have a second. Any more discussion?
I have some more discussion.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, the one thing that we don't see in here, it's a big difference on the regular agricultural, how many outbuildings are allowed. So now we have a 0.5 residential with a house on it, and we can have unlimited outbuildings according to an agricultural setting. And so we need to identify the number of outbuildings or no outbuildings on a 0.5 if a house is built.
Okay, what is residential R120? They have a outbuilding. They can have one
They can have more than one.
down to residential.
Singular accessory building. In the R1?
We don't have a limit on outbuildings, we're calling basically Accessory.
Dwellings? Well, we do not have a limit at this point. We are
Accessory structures. is what the-
structures, yes,
Yeah.
structures.
But it can't consume more than the rear yard, a certain percentage of the rear yard, and it can't, let me pull it up, I'll tell you guys.
There's height restrictions, because in agriculture, height restrictions are what, on your building size? I think it's 30 or 40 or something, not 35 or nothing.
Residential is 32.
They'd have to apply for conditional use.
On each property.
In the ordinance.
Yeah,
In the ordinance, you guys have that? If you scroll, Daisy, that
that's actually a good idea.
actually there, see do have the 35 foot and then
Oh,
you
35-foot max height.
It's in there.
Yep.
Oh, it is. But you don't-
don't talk about an accessory, not dwelling structure.
Okay, any other discussion, Joey?
That's how we discuss it.
Okay. Did
So
you get
do
your
we-
answer you wanted?
Did you want to modify the 35 foot with the motion or not?
What's that?
Did you want to modify that 35 foot?
I'm good with 35 foot because it's higher than that regular agriculture. That's the
Regular than
same- that's the same
residential.
as R120.
Okay.
I just missed that. The only thing about it is like accessory buildings then, so if you're gonna have unlimited accessory buildings.
But we have that in R120 now.
You already, we don't limit that, I don't believe. The,
In R120.
in R120, we don't, so if you wanted 6 sheds, you could put 6 sheds in there. We are looking at that and revising that.
Looking right
Do
now.
you wanna put it in there or do you wanna just?
On ag, I'd wait and see if they change the R120, then maybe we could address the ag at that point.
I'd just say because it's not restricted in our R120 right now. It restricts.
Yeah. All right, any further discussion?
Like this.
So do we change that to this?
Yeah, it doesn't,
So-
So we could add that as a secondary buildings.
It's a conditional use,
So every time it's, it has to be approved.
okay? We could add that, so we modify the motion to have a conditional use on a secondary building.
Does that work for planning and zoning as far as making that fit?
Yeah, I would just need to make
Sure
sure.
that we're not getting to the point where we're doing significant changes
Yeah.
to this ordinance. That's gonna be a,
Attorney Snow.
Eighth?
And you don't regulate the number of buildings in residential.
Right.
yeah, we don't
So we'll leave it the way it is,
leave it the way it is.
if we can always change it.
If we want to add something, then I think that
We
would
can
be a
change it later.
significant change, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our
I
motion
just
is, second still stand?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Nay.
We have 3 ayes and 2 nays. The motion approves. All right, item 5, discuss and possible action on ordinance commercial design standards to modify building and architectural design standards.
So this one has also gone through planning commission. It's before you, just in modifying this. The main changes in here, Days, if you want to scroll, I'm not sure if you're on the green, not the red line. Are you on the red line? But basically, it says to, yeah, right here, this is what we added to it, just to avoid extremes and uncharacteristic themes and styles and color. And then the next one says that it has to building material and color, the color of all exterior building materials, surfaces shall blend the proposed new buildings with the city. Just to avoid extremes and.
Okay.
So that's it. It's just that simple, just to add those words to the,
I make a motion to approve business item D5.
Good second motion, Mayor.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye, sorry, half asleep.
It's okay, as long as the half we need's awake. All right, item D6, discuss a possible action on ordinance 2023 nightly rental ordinance to establish condition for commercial zone.
this one, this ordinance has been passed back and forth and it's gone through planning commission. On March 15th, the city council directed the planning commission to review and revise the ordinance for nightly rental development in an MPDO in MPDO commercial zones. The Planning Commission meeting that was held on May 11th, the ordinance was recommended for approval. Staff has provided this draft with the changes recommended by the Planning Commission. Days, if you want to scroll down through the ordinance, starting at the top, and we'll go to we need the red lines. These are some of the changes that were made. The maximum number of dwellings, you can see 6 to 7 here, the 5% of the base ERUs for the whole MPDO. Then you can see the primary access here. You've got it from major arterial road. That was one of the ones that they changed, identified in the final MPDO plan. Then item E, the nightly rental development shall have clearly defined boundaries, either through landscaping or other forms of screening, which still promotes walkability and access to areas outside of the said development. One of the things they debated and discussed in there was whether it should be fenced. They finally settled on that it should be just kind of screening to let people know when they actually are in that development and when they are not. If you go down again, Days. And then right here, they wanted to prohibit the parking of vehicles and trailers and watercraft on the streets within that nightly rental development. The next one, the property management company, they talked about that they will maintain a license as may be required by Tokerville City Code. And then the developer of an MPDO, this was one of the main things that they talked about, that a developer of an MPDO will make an election in their final MPDO plan, whether they will have nightly rentals in a commercial planning area, or if they will just allow nightly rentals throughout their development. So in accordance to that. And then if the developer opts for one or more, then it just talks about the culinary water connections. This is actually going to apply to an ordinance that's coming up next in the regular nightly rental. But basically what it's saying is that if a developer comes in and builds out, their number of utility connections are not going to be used when we calculate the number of nightly rental permits available throughout the city. So scroll down.
It would be if they elected not to do a nightly rental development in a commercial planning area, meaning that they were going to allow it to be interspersed throughout their community. But if they do make that election, then there would be some benefit to the city in the sense that density in a new development would not then expand the number, because the next ordinance you're going to see is going to limit 5% based off of residential water connections.
This is kind of stupid. Is it possible we can table this till after the?
I was going to say the same thing. I was going to ask.
Change the order.
Yes. Nightly rental ordinance first.
Do we need to table this, or can we just modify the agenda so we don't have to table it?
Yeah,
Table it.
Okay.
You table it. You've already approved the agenda order. Just make a motion to table it till after the next ordinance.
Yeah.
Sure.
I make a motion to table business item D6 until after D7's discussion.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move on to item 7, discuss some possible action on ordinance 2023 nightly rental ordinance to establish conditions for nightly rental dwellings within the city.
So, Mayor, this ordinance came before the city council on April 19th. As most people are aware, the city has a moratorium on nightly rental permits within the city while we work through these nightly rental ordinances due to the number of applications that we were getting. So a moratorium was put in effect for 6 months. That started February 2nd, and it will expire February 1st, and it will expire on August 1st. So this ordinance came through, it went through Planning Commission, and then it actually came to council. It passed at council, which would have given us the opportunity to lift the moratorium. However, after we were reviewing the ordinance, it was determined that significant changes had been made to the ordinance, and not all of those changes had been discussed in an open public meeting during the Planning Commission in the prior month. So this ordinance was sent back to Planning Commission to have a public hearing. So you have that in front of you. In the Planning Commission meeting that was held on May 11th, the Planning Commission recommended approval of this revision with some of the changes. Staff has provided this draft with the changes recommended by Planning Commission. Daisy, if you want to scroll down through this, some of the changes that were made in here, and one of the significant changes that we noticed that had We'll go down through this ordinance, but just go back up to where you were to the first change, please. Thank you. So before we get into this, I just want to point out that one of the changes that we are going to be discussing, that is the main change that sent this back to Planning Commission, is that when this ordinance came through council had, it had been recommended with 5 model homes in neighborhoods of 100 homes or more. When it came to city council voted to raise that number to 10. So a developer, so the ordinance that came through, so a few versions ago, it was the change was made that in a neighborhood with 100 lots or more, that there could be 10 homes that could be used as nightly rentals, so that people could come stay there, see if they wanted to buy a home in that neighborhood. After that, after a certain time, when the neighborhood's getting built out and the permits have been pulled, that use goes away. Those homes are no longer nightly rentals. They become sold, and they're just single family homes in the neighborhood. So when that came to city council, the Planning Commission had recommended that at 5%. City council determined that 10 was the appropriate number. When this ordinance went back to Planning Commission reduced that number back to 5, but it wasn't discussed in an open public meeting. So when it came back through council, that was a significant change to reduce the number by 50%, but it wasn't discussed in a meeting. So that was one of the changes that required us to have an additional public hearing at the Planning Commission level. So now working through the ordinance, there were some things in here that the fire inspection, this is just a wording change. It said annual renewal here. It should have said their initial, to receive an initial. It should say permit. So that said annual renewal just needed to be updated. We went through that in Planning Commission. Days, if you'll scroll down to the next. Yeah, so then right here, we actually do need to make a change on this, because what happened is we had reduced the fees. That had gone through, it had been all approved to reduce the fees, but the actual wording had not been updated, only the dollar amounts. So that's just making those two match. The dollar amounts match the written text. And then right here, this is the one I was talking about, no more than 10. Planning Commission changed that to 5. Council had set that at 10. Planning Commission is recommending it to you back down at 5. So that's one thing you'll have to discuss if you feel like 10 is still appropriate. That's what you had done the first time. Or if they, should be allowed. But then this is a new change because we had to try to figure out how to make that nightly rental condition go away. And this was kind of the wording that once the development has been sold out at 90%, the exception shall be voided within 2 years. So they won't be able to have those as nightly rentals after that. So that's one of the major changes in this ordinance. And then I think that's it, Days. If you scroll down, I think that's everything, right? Yeah. So those are the changes that you're looking at.
I think we already pretty much approved.
Can I just one other?
Last meeting or the meeting before.
Right.
Yeah, it would just be if you want to address the 5 to 10.
Right.
And then the other thing is that with this, if you are to approve this, the way that this is going to work that we discussed is that it's going to be 5% of utility connections, right? Currently, when this came to you the first time, we had 721 connections. We now have 724. So what we would be asking for in the motion to be considered is that the moratorium, even with the passing of this ordinance, that the moratorium is still in effect until we exhaust the moratorium until August 1st. And the reason why is we've got to put this in City Inspect. We've got to have people are going to start trying to apply to have a waiting list going. There's a lot of work that has to go on behind the scenes. We have to update our applications to make them match the new ordinances. It's not like people can just start applying tomorrow and we would have this ready. Our new forms are going to have to go. We're going to have to look at legal through those. We've got to, work out the conditions of when someone is on that list. Let's say someone is on the waiting list, because there's going to have to be a waiting list. The number that is recommended is at the max.
The moratorium we shouldn't be accepting.
We're not.
We're not.
We're not.
We're not.
There's not a waiting list right now.
Well, what we're saying is the second that our moratorium is lifted, we're already at the max connection. We're already at the
We're already
max.
at 36.
So we will immediately have to start a waiting list and say, you're just on a waiting list indefinitely until we get more utility. But, well,
Because we don't have the paperwork ready. We don't have the application.
so we want to keep the moratorium there in place because then people are going to get on the waiting list. We have people that we have to notify still that we're waiting to see if they're going to fill out their business license. The other thing we would ask is that you put some sort of condition on it that says, that says like they've got to get their business license within 90 days of getting their permit or of getting their nightly rental permit. I mean, so there are a couple of things that we're looking at that we've got to work out internally. They're just policy, right? They're not ordinance, they're policy, but we need time to put the policies in place.
We identified that it needs to be on an existing structure. So somebody couldn't just go get one for a vacant lot that they're gonna build on in the future and tie it up.
To say it again?
So like you couldn't have somebody go onto that list that we're talking about with a vacant lot that they haven't built yet. They have to have their structure done.
Yeah, no, they've got to put in a nightly rental. I mean, they've got to have their parking, they've got to have all that. Yeah, no. But what we're saying is if we allow this in the city right now, we're at about the max number, right? Of these. Yeah. So 36. And I think we've got like total we'll have, I don't know, 30, 32, 30 right in there. So what you'll have is immediately, we already have people that are calling us wanting to apply, right? But what I'm saying is, so once the moratorium's lifted and we start accepting applications, those people have to come back through the process. They have to be approved for their permit. If they get approved for their permit, they still have to apply for a business license. We need to put a condition on here that says, and we can do it by policy that says, hey, but we'd rather have it in the motion that says you've got to apply for your business license within 90 days or else your permit's voided.
So they can't type a permit if they're not ready to go to the next person.
Yeah, just have to get their business license. Yes.
I mean,
90 days.
That 36 that we just figured out, those are only legal ones, right? So
Right.
they could be
Exactly.
way
And there's
off.
probably, we know there, we assume there's probably 20 more that are operating illegally, right? Which we're going to try to address with code enforcement, but so we would like to continue days of getting that. You can't just tie up a permit forever and never get a business. It'll be
So it's a
a
nightly rental license.
Yeah.
Okay.
They've just been permits for years. So
I keep
yeah.
getting confused. Okay, I thought we
Yeah,
changed
it's
it
a
to
license.
license.
We
Okay. On number 5, to receive an initial license, the nightly rental must pass an annual fire inspection. Shouldn't that read, to receive an initial license, nightly rental must pass? a
Yeah, that
fire
word was
inspection?
supposed to be
Annual
changed.
needs to come out.
Annual needs to come out. Okay.
Yeah, that should have been a red line.
So we're not going to make them get an annual fire inspection every
No, we
year.
are.
No, they are.
Okay, this is just the.
Ordinance is broken into 2 parts. The
This is
first
to
part
get-
addresses
yeah.
the initial application. The second part addresses the renewal.
Retention.
Mhm. And that's just a copy and paste.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
that's why.
M2 has the fire inspection.
Yeah, I thought we did have that. All
So we
right.
just need to remove the word annual, the second annual.
And then, I'm sorry, go ahead, Gary, sorry.
Going back to Ty's comment about having an empty lot, wanting to build on it.
You can't do a fire inspection.
Well, the thing about it is I'm really getting to the waiting list, okay? So all of a sudden I'm told you can't get on the waiting list now. I wait until the day of the waiting list, and then there's 5 people or 6 people that got ahead of me on that one particular day because I didn't know. So I don't know why we can't start a waiting list and just contact the people.
We need, because if there's other codes that change between the time their application is accepted, all sorts of things.
But they don't have to do anything.
Put it in city, they've got to submit them online. We don't have it in City Inspect. We don't have it in the software. I mean, they're going to have to submit these applications online. We've got to actually put that into the
So
software.
to be on a waiting list.
How to get 'em.
Prior to this, nothing was there.
It was like paper and now we're doing it online.
Let me
through our
make
new-
a suggestion that if we adopt it in the effectiveness provision, the very last paragraph, number 4, that we state that it becomes effective on August 1st, right when our moratorium expires. That way, we have an expiring moratorium and we have an effective regulating ordinance.
Because there's going to be policy that's going to govern the internal, like the application, this, and that's going to have to
You
go through
guys have
legal
that much time
review.
to deal and be prepared
Right.
for that.
And it's still got to go to your office for review. I mean, there's a bunch of behind the scenes admin that has to happen to actually put this in place and the waiting list.
So what happens, this is just talk about waiting lists, because so what happens if someone submits a complete packet and then someone submits an incomplete packet? Where does the incomplete, like, we're not even looking at them until they're in queue number 2 and there's 4 behind them. We haven't looked at it until we have an incomplete packet in number 2. Do they keep their spot? So we need-
No,
we
they-
need
no,
to
they-
look-
yes,
we
they-
need to make sure.
they're on the wait.
A complete package can be submitted on, like, it has to be complete.
That's why through our city inspect software, it will
Deny it if
allow you to
it's not.
progress to the next
Okay.
page.
Yeah,
and
you'll
let's
just
do that.
reject it, and then if they're complete, it will come.
If you're trying to build a home in our city inspect, it basically.
You won't get very far.
Thing in there, it gets rejected until you have an application.
You can upload a Word document that says, I don't care, but it'll accept it.
We have- Right, then we have, yeah, but then
Joey.
it goes to staff
Put that on the
review.
record.
because- But after that, it goes to staff review and gets kicked out,
Was
so.
that in our city or another city, Joey? Okay.
Here, that was not here. But, so we just need a little bit of time to get like the administrative side of it put into place. That's it. We've got some things that have to go through legal review, the applications, the forms. We got to get it uploaded in the software.
So you're suggesting, Attorney Snow, that we change that effective August 1st there on line 4.
Then we pass it tonight. It becomes effective August 1st. Everyone knows what's coming. We can prepare for it. And our moratorium expires August 1st.
Okay.
So back to the top, up towards the middle, though, we have some items that we might want to discuss a few more on. Are we happy with the 5 homes in a subdivision? Our original was 10. Where are we feeling on that?
We, I have 2 questions, and if it's okay, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
One is I'd like to hear from Andrea what their thinking was with the planning commission, but if it's okay, can I ask Scott a question? About, yeah, on this, well, because it's the model homes, just, I mean, or maybe our attorney can answer it. These are model homes to allow people to come in, see whether they like the development, whether they like the neighborhood, Tokerville, et cetera, et cetera. Do developers, are they charging for people to come in, or is this a comp? Are people just coming in and they get, is it okay to ask that, Mayor?
I don't see a problem with that.
The way we've done it is it's been a nominal fee, and really the way to look at this is a marketing tool. This is how we look at it. So these, it says model homes, but they're marketing tools. So we bring prospective customers in. Occasionally, we've noticed patterns where certain people kind of abuse that, and we cut them off.
Okay.
Because this is for marketing, and it's really nothing but money. And so, yeah, we're just trying to get people in that are legitimate customers,
Okay.
potential customers.
And a nominal fee.
Is the fee to cover like housekeeping and stuff like that?
Stuff like that.
Okay, thank you. And then if it's okay if Andrea, they're thinking between 5 and 10, the planning commission.
So we just, on all of these ordinances that we talked about, we settled on 5% for our city percentages that we're using, and really felt like we were applying that the same evenly to all of the areas in our, that we're looking at. So we had said initially, so like the next ordinance, we said like 3 to 5. We're like, you know, it's 5. We did 5 for residential, let's do 5 for the commercial development, let's do 5 for the model homes. They're all consistent.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another discussion on this.
I think, Mayor, the thing that I come back to is we had a lengthy conversation about how many to approve in the first place. We
Yep.
gave direction to go to 10, and it got changed after we approved it. So I'm the same as I was before. I'm comfortable with 10, just because that's what we've talked about. I feel like in the marketing world, I have no issues with that at all. I was a little bit trying to figure out how you would determine, and this came up before, maybe there had been some clarification on it, but it says the development has been sold out at 90%, then the exception shall be voided within 2 years. like, when I think about Firelight or Toker West, like, what is the development is defined? Are we?
It's
are we
the 100
defining
lot
it?
subdivision.
Just the 100 lots.
So, okay.
This
That's
is under
what I wanna
item
make sure
1,
I
right above it. Yeah, was the 100 lots. So when 90% of that subdivision is
So
built
then
out,
those can be
within
available.
2 years, whether they've sold the rest 10% or they haven't, they're no longer nightly rentals. That was one of the reasons why council moved it to 10, is because they recognized this is going away. This is not permanent use in the city.
Well, and 5% 5 works at the concept of 5% if it's 100 homes in the development. What if there's 600 homes in the development? That's like 2%.
Right. Yeah, it's a bigger development. It doesn't say 5%, it says 5.
5.
Well, I think that 100 is coming from a definition that we listed earlier.
For
NPD.
It has to be at least
a
100.
minimum Of 100.
Yeah.
You can't get it as one.
Do we change that from 5 to 5%?
So Joe, you're hitting on a little bit about what my concern was. We bring up 100, and if they're building 5,000 homes, right? And they have to get to 90, like, if that's what the development is, then those homes aren't gonna sell for 15 years. Or whenever they get to that point.
Each phase
I
of
think
the,
we need to put it in like, and not use Firelight, because they're gonna have their adult active community. So once they're adult active community, I don't know how we define that in that. Once that portion of that is done, then they have to eliminate the model homes in that portion. If they have another portion that's, extreme living, something, whatever.
Extreme
Mhm.
that's called tents.
And that's
Tents.
why, that's why originally council made it not based off of a percentage. They made it an actual number. Like if this is, it's got to be a subdivision that has 100 homes or more and you're only allowed 10.
We just did, when we originally wrote this and I was in planning commission, we just didn't want a 20 lot subdivision.
And 10 lots.
10 homes, right. Right, right.
Wanted somebody that actually had room to put the model homes and not have just a bunch of nightly rentals.
Makes sense.
When I saw the word model home, I've never seen a development that had more than 5 model homes to look at. But this is a marketing device, so you might have multiple people in the same type of a model. So I don't know if the planning commission looked at that model home and understood that it was marketing home.
So they'll still be able to sleep in it, even though they're marketing, they're gonna spend.
Yeah, they'll spend the night.
Yeah,
It's not just something you're gonna walk in and check it out, they're gonna see all the floor plans.
Exactly.
Okay,
You're good with 10%?
Yes.
the other motion? Any other changes, or what's your motion, or what do we have?
August 1st.
August 1st?
Eliminate the annual
Right.
on
we got
number
that.
5
Yep.
and go to 10 on number 2 there. You too.
That's your motion?
No, I'm not making the motion, am I?
I don't know, are you? It sounds like you are. It sounded like Joey seconded it.
Did you second that?
Daisy's confused. Be clear, who made the motion and who seconded it?
Actually make a motion.
Yeah, someone make a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we eliminate the word annual on number 5?
Yep.
And that we go ahead and
Change those.
change the handwriting on the penalty section. And that we allow 10 marketing homes used as nightly rentals.
Not as nightly rentals.
Used as a nightly rental shall. And
August 1st.
and that on item number 4, that the ordinance will be effective on August 1st.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this motion?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd make sure that we clarify that those homes aren't to be nightly rentals, they're to be model homes.
Model homes that can be used as,
It just strictly says model homes.
We can change that.
No, it says nightly
model
rentals.
homes to be used
Used as nightly rentals.
I missed that, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I just, Is that half half is still
I'm
asleep?
happy now.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion approves. We are now back up to item 6. Discuss possible action, nightly rental ordinance to establish conditions for commercial zone. All right, Joe, you wanted to go the first one first and this one second.
Oh, I know,
so.
I just.
Yeah, the reason why we needed to do that other one was so that we could say, so that you understood that so everybody understood that in that. So when we go down and we talk about the MPDOs, when we go down even further days to the one where it says MPDOs will make an election. So right here on O, when it says the developer of an MPDO shall make an election in their approved final MPDO plan, whether or not they will have one or more nightly rental developments in their commercial planning areas, or if they will simply allow nightly rentals to occur on a dispersed basis, with that code, in compliance with that code. So what this is saying is that when a developer comes through the process and they are applying for an MPDO, before they can get their final approval, they need to tell us first they need to decide if they're going to do their nightly rentals in a commercial zone or if they're going to do them throughout their residential area. And if they are going to do them in their commercial, where, right, they can't exceed, in this ordinance, I think it says they can't exceed 5% of their base ERUs. But then what this says also is if they decide that they're not going to do them in commercial areas, they're only going to do them throughout their residential areas, then those residential connections will be used in the total number of permits for the city. But if they decide to do them in a commercial area, we are not going to count their utility connections in the nightly rentals of the regular nightly rentals of the city.
Planning Commission was concerned about the possibility of harvesting density from new developments out along the parkway and having an excessive amount of nightly rentals in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's great. Absolutely.
But then Scott might say, okay, if we want to create or incentivize congregating them in commercial areas together, then should it be the same percentage?
Right.
Yeah, what they're saying is if they're giving up the right to have nightly rentals throughout their entire residential of this 1,750 acres, what the incentive to put those in commercial areas, to put commercial uses in commercial areas would be to explore the percentage.
Yeah.
So the percentage, can you scroll up to it?
So if an MPDO elects to do the nightly rental, right now it's written at 5%.
Which would be the same thing as,
If an MPDO doesn't, it falls back to the residential ones, which was just approved.
Right, 5%.
So they're saying the incentive to keep these, it would be to raise the
Cluster should be-
percentage from 5 to 6 to
I guess
7.
from a policy perspective, you have to ask, would there be a higher likelihood of complaints from neighbors or issues if they're dispersed throughout, or if everyone right around them knew that them and everyone else was not
Well, I think that's been the whole point. I mean, we've talked about this council. I've been a huge proponent of putting it into a commercial zone so everybody knows what they're getting. You're getting if it's commercial, you're getting a Maverick. You know what's going in beside you. I would be in favor of trying to incentivize whoever it is to put their home, those nightly rentals into a commercial zone. It's a commercial use of property. It's where it should be, in my opinion, versus dispersing them across.
So that's
Just so I'm clear again, if they decide to disperse it throughout their development.
Yep.
That does count toward the culinary, that goes on the culinary
Yes.
water? Okay.
It's
for-
So it would be an
Even though
incentive. Yes.
Even though it's in an MPDO,
Yes.
we're still counting it.
Yes.
But we're still not counting all the developments that have HOAs.
No, we are counting
we
them.
aren't counting.
We're counting them.
Well, I mean, we are counting those, even though
We're
that's not
counting
a
'em.
fair number, but yeah.
Yeah, we're counting them. We're counting if you have we're counting them. They're based on culinary water connections in the city.
Yep.
If you live in an HOA and your HOA says, hey, you can't build those in. you
You're still
can't do
counting
that in here,
Okay.
doesn't matter. It is based off of the fact that Tokerville has 724
Okay.
culinary water connections. So what we're saying is to incentivize these developers to not come in and do 4,500 nightly rentals all around, or all around the city, to get them to cluster. I mean, really.
So the
1,000
5%, they're,
Across the entire city when we build out.
so there's,
We got
so at this point, they're not getting any incentive to keep them in a commercial area. We're just saying you get the same amount regardless if you put them in a commercial area or if you put them in everywhere else in residence. So if
Well, and then it is based off of base ERUs, and the density
Exactly.
could actually be more.
Their base is 30.
With the density bonuses.
Yep.
So to Todd's point, if you have an HOA with 200 single residences and
Right.
they're not allowing nightly rentals there, and basically they're entitled to what, 10 nightly rentals at 5%, where are those 10 nightly rentals going to go? They'll go in Old Town. And is that what the citizens want down here? Or do we?
This is exactly my point. If you don't want nightly rental behind it, move into an HOA or put them in commercial, because then you know where they're at.
It's not realistic for every person in Tokerville to live in an HOA. So pushing these developments to commercial areas is,
And then one of the things, and maybe it's in here, I apologize if I missed it, the binding document that would bind the developer to that and then to prohibit those to be done through the CCNRs.
Yes.
Correct?
That's right in there.
I didn't, I scrolled through and didn't see it.
J, the nightly rental development shall have an owners association governing documents containing recorded restrictive covenants which, and then you have got all those requirements have to be in the CCNRs.
I mean, and then we obviously also have development agreements in place. And then we also have, they have to declare it at their final MPDO plan. So we know what they're doing.
How do we handle CCNRs right now inside the city?
Right.
we don't.
We don't. The city doesn't. HOAs do.
That's my question is, I've filed CCNRs before and the city never reviewed them, so I can file whatever crap I wanted. So my question is, if we're going to, we need to have a mechanism to tie those together as well.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know when you recorded those CCNRs and which city reviewed them, but I review all CCNRs for any new subdivision in this city. And what I'm looking at,
Not the city.
okay,
Just like Joey's still on.
gotcha, not this. Well, I'm looking at that the CCNRs don't say you can build a 50-foot high house when we have a 30-foot height restriction. Those types of things, or that you can have 0 lot line setbacks and stuff like that. So they are reviewed, but then we don't get into the middle of enforcing them.
To partially answer your question, Ty, if they choose to do the nightly rental development, those culinary connections that are used to calculate the total are no longer counted throughout the rest of the city. So we don't have to worry about the CCNRs because
Their
The
point is,
eligibility point.
shouldn't we have that same type of provision to not count culinary connections in HOAs that restrict or prohibit nightly rentals as well? And to Afton's point, that was raised in the planning commission. And how do we get into, does the city spend time initially looking at every subdivision's
Thanks, guys.
CCNRs initially, and then do we police it every once in a while to confirm that they haven't gone out and remodified it and changed it after the fact? Does that make sense? And so her point was it's a little more challenging in in just your run-of-the-mill smaller subdivision that might have an HOA versus a large master planned MPDO.
Well, not only that, but the HOAs can always be modified.
Yes. Well, that's the
So
point.
you
You'd
take
have
them
to-
out, the next thing you know, they've changed the HOA.
you-
Now they let them in. Now
We'd have to sit down and pull every CCNR for every subdivision
Right.
in the city first, and then we probably ought to go back and check every couple of years to make sure
who's
they haven't
changed.
changed.
Exactly. So we just, yeah.
But would that be a worthwhile effort for the
Well,
sake of limiting?
No, and that was Afton's point to this whole thing. She acknowledges Todd's thought process.
Let's
there.
say you're an HOA and you don't allow them in there, and you live in an HOA and you're first, second, and third on the waiting list, right? All you have to do is have your HOA say, oh, hey, we're going to allow these here. Change your CCNRs. It ups the number of permits available in the city. You three get your nightly rentals, and then you go change your CCNRs back down. That's why you can't just do it. Do you see what I'm saying? An HOA could ultimately an HOA could manipulate the number of nightly rentals. That's why it makes sense to incentivize these commercial developments to stay in commercial areas, because if they stay in a commercial area, we don't count those into ours.
I absolutely agree with what you're saying, the idea of clustering them in a central commercial area.
Yeah.
I'm still hung up on the fact that we're counting as culinary connections, HOAs that prohibit nightly rentals. And all that's doing is, Gary was pointing out, and I've been trying to point out before, is all you're doing is clustering that in the center of the city or Torqueville Heights, where they allow nightly rentals.
It's capped at 5%.
Right, it's 5%.
That's why it's capped at 5%. What
The
that
residents-
does,
the fact that Ty is talking about Choya and I'm talking about TRE, there's pretty much no way that those CCNRs are going to change to allow nightly rentals. And if it does, it's going to take a vote of all the membership. So
Yeah,
I mean,
so
I
your
know-
whole idea about this actually changing, I'm not buying it.
well, it could happen. You have to buy that it could
Well,
happen.
yeah, and a plane could fly into, oh, never mind, that already happened.
Yeah. But what I'm saying with that is, city council is the land use authority for the city, not an HOA. So to allow an HOA to manipulate the number of permits available in the city, that to allow an HOA to manipulate the number of
Well,
permits.
your example, that's not gonna happen, because your example is, okay, the HOA decides, yeah, we're gonna allow 3 nightly rentals, and then they go back and they change it, and we're not
Well,
gonna.
they wouldn't allow 3 nightly rentals. What they'd say is, we're going to allow nightly rentals in TRE.
Great. and
That would add, if we allow, so simple math, right? If we put this up here, we have 721 connections. That means we have 36 permits available in the
Okay,
city.
and if TRE decides
If we
that,
exclude, so we have right now we have 32 permits in the city,
sure,
right? If we exclude 120 lots based on 60 in Choya and 60 in TRE,
Yep.
we're now already in violation of our ordinance. We have way too many nightly rentals. That's why you can't do it by excluding HOAs.
Well, in that sense, though,
It doesn't.
in
we would
in that
already
sense,
have-
it's not a matter of zoning, and those would be allowed to stay if they had a valid license at the time we invoked the percentage. If they ever ceased doing it and it went away, then we would not go back up to that number until we saturated down to the percentage. But we could make the conversion.
and if TRE is gonna allow nightly rentals, well, then they're allowing nightly rentals, and that allows more nightly rentals.
It's an interesting.
Correct?
It's, I
Like in your
understand it.
example, TRE could make it, TRE could decide they want to have nightly rentals. Okay, well, there you go. TRE has nightly rentals, and now they're just added to the culinary.
And then, yeah, and then what I'm saying is, yeah, if you already allow nightly rentals, they're added to the culinary water connection.
So what's
right?
wrong with that?
So people get offered the way, let's say the first 3 people on the list are from TRE, and now you guys get your nightly rentals. To say that CCNRs never changed, that's not.
Yeah, but you're already counting them anyway, so your example is moot.
No.
You are. You're already counting TRE culinary hookups, correct?
Right, and I'm
Okay,
saying
so
you
now
should allow
TRE, you're counting you're counting TRE hookups, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so
absolutely.
now TRE decides, hey, we're gonna have nightly rentals. Well, you're already counting them.
Right.
So that just adds 5% right there.
Well, we've already have,
Before is that you would exclude them.
Yep,
We're under the impression that they're excluded.
right, then that'll
So
lower
they
it.
come on.
Yep.
and it raises it up.
That'll-
Come on,
Yeah, they're
right.
not gonna go back.
Right.
They're not gonna
So,
go back
yeah,
and forth.
all right. Okay, we beat this,
But that-
we beat this to death.
So the,
That isn't.
So the
related to
question
this-
is-
That isn't related to this particular.
No,
you're
it's
right.
not.
You're right.
So
It's
this,
related to
we're
the
back
last
to
one.
this, the 5%. Are we going to hold at 5%? Or are we going to try to incentivize the builder, give them a higher percentage to put them in a commercial area? Or we're going to let them put 5% through their whole MPDO? So that's to me, that's the big question right here, right now. You know, do we give them 5% that goes through the whole city? Or do we bump that up 6, 7, 8% to hold them in a smaller commercial area? That's the main debate.
As an incentive.
As an incentive to keep them there versus put them out through the city.
The
So,
only time it even matters is if it's a massive number of ERUs.
That's right, I'm thinking of one developer that has a massive number of ERUs.
We got two, we have two.
I have two, there's two.
One is not elected to do this. but
At this point.
probably submit change to do that.
Well,
Right.
yeah,
Well,
one
yeah.
only has preliminary MPDO, and so by the time it gets to
By
its
the time we do
final,
that, yeah, they could.
yes,
They
they
could come
could.
in and then they would have the option to make that same decision. So
Right.
I like the 5% because then it's consistent through the whole city for residential use. But then we're giving them incentive. My proposal would be, let's bump that up if they put it in the commercial area, so that now we're incentivizing them to
Put it in a
put it
commercial
where it
area.
needs to go.
Keep it out of
versus spreading it
residence.
out. And then I'm not binding anybody who has a development agreement. They still get to choose, right? They're not getting punished if they go one way or the other.
Right.
They can get rewarded if they put it into the commercial. So
The only thing I was saying is 5% or 6% doesn't mean anything for 100-acre.
Yes.
That's right, that's right. Yeah,
But for the two that are.
we have two very large, yep, so
So do we have to state,
we'd have to say the
I
number.
think we'd have to.
I mean, do we have to state 5% if they decide to do a?
Well, yeah,
We
we
could
could,
simply do the 5% base ERUs for the whole MPDO development in a residential.
Well, that is how it,
that's,
because of the
It's
other
a default
ordinance you
back
just
anyway.
passed.
Okay, so we could just
So
say-
it's just for this one, if
Or
in
in a
a
commercial.
commercial zone, it would be whatever percentage you pick.
right,
Thank you. That's
perfect. And I honestly would, my personal opinion is I would love to incentivize these to put them in one area. Keep them, or not exactly one, but keep them in a cluster in a commercial area. So rather than having them out through the residencies. That's my opinion. I'd like to give them an incentive to do that.
So since we're talking about one of the developments, their ERUs is 3,400?
Their base, yes.
Right.
It's 175.
But if you,
Scott,
At 5%.
34,
3498.
34.98, if you want to do exact.
It's
math.
175, rounded up.
Yeah, at 5%.
I'm happy with 5.
I'm kind of,
I'm, here's my opinion on I'm not happy with 5, and that is if you let them go out through their whole thing, and now you take their 3490 times that by their bonus density, because they're going to get and then, so now we're at 4,200 homes, you times that by 5%, now you're much higher.
Keep talking.
Well, I'm just, I mean, we got to look at real
well,
numbers.
we decided not to use bonus densities.
Right.
Well, but
It's based on VR.
Because-
connections.
it's based off water connections. It doesn't, so now we're not talking about, now if you go off water connections, bonus density counts.
I guess what, the question that we had kind of tossed around is why would the 5%?
That does.
Yeah, you're right. That's,
Holy cow.
yeah,
Right.
so now you're,
Times the word.
that's right.
Putting way more than 5% in.
That's right. So you got to look at that. So if you're looking at water meters, you got to talk about the whole density. So if you want to give them an incentive, I would say give them an incentive to put it in a commercial area.
I don't think they need an incentive. They're already made up their mind as to what they want.
Well, this
They
is,
want to do this.
Developers
This lets
Well,
them know how many they can have.
You
Now
know,
they can really plan on, hey, we have X amount of number. No, we have a much smaller number, so maybe it doesn't pencil. We're just going to let,
Totally
you know.
Scott's already said it doesn't
What's
pencil
that?
at 175.
Total ERUs on that?
base 3490.
No.
43,
Total-
40.
Total with density with.
with bonus density.
44. something like that.
44 and change.
Kind of what was in my mind.
We'll use
Yeah.
4,400
Yep.
times 5%. It's 220 that they're allowed if they distribute them.
And those could be, a lot of those could be in town, because now we're letting them wherever out in town, not
Because the
in.
water connections. is-
That's right.
Go back to the water
So,
connections, and now they're allowed to.
A base,
Bang.
220 versus 5% of 34.98.
175.
Okay, what's 6% of,
209, I think.
What's
Go ahead and do it.
okay, 34,
Why don't we just keep it 5% as the density, that max density? But
Well-
that's- Because then every ERU will be the same, then you're gonna count the water, the water equivalent. So now if you just say whatever your max ERU was. for your base-
5%, and not use off base ERU.
What that does too is it says if somebody comes in with a lower MPDO and they can't get all their 30% bonus densities, it pulls that number back to the 5% equally. So if someone comes in with 300 acres.
It's definitely
they
more,
only get
it's
20%.
it's definitely easier for the city to track.
Right.
It's way easier and it's
And
exactly.
conform to
what-
it.
But the problem is, what if that's the very first development that goes in?
Right.
And so the density's already been given,
And then they,
and then the rest of the development doesn't pull through with all of the
Bonus
amenities that,
right.
that give them the basis for the.
We give them the bonus before we,
That's why I think, I think a higher percentage
Calculation
of the base.
off of one of the numbers, right?
Yes.
The densities and the makeup densities on the actual bonuses or the equivalent residential units. Like in your guys' development agreement, you guys have to make that up at a certain time or you don't proceed forward, right?
Yeah.
So
So you're saying 5% of their max?
max. Or do you do 7% of a, it comes out,
Base.
basically comes out the same.
7% of base or 5% of
Max.
max is almost identical.
but what I'm saying is
Right,
if
I'm
another
hearing
comes
you.
in that can't hit their 30%, they're not gonna get.
They're 7%.
Well, they're not getting, and the beauty of that is then they're not getting the same,
It treats
like,
everybody.
they're not giving as much to the city, to the citizens for
They're
open
not
space
getting-
and the benefit,
Right.
and they're not getting that reward either, like, here's what you get, because you get open space and trails and all these parks that go with it.
I'm good with
5% of the max?
that.
Scott has comment, Mayor.
Scott, go ahead.
So would that be from the calculated max right off the bat? I mean, what if? you had-
Yeah, that's what they're, right off the bat.
So that gotta be on your submission.
Yeah. Because you've got to, yeah. And then, because you've only got so
Because
long.
you need to be able to plan your project.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so that's.
Either you gotta
And you only have a
7%.
certain time to do
Right.
your catch-up density anyways.
Right.
To get the bonus. So anyways, I think it's like 4 years. Is it like 4 years?
I think the only thing
For your
that's still not getting
catch-up.
addressed is I would rather have those.
I would rather
Well,
have,
that's what I'm saying, but that's.
that's-
Still does that if you go with the max density.
Well, other than we're not incentivizing them to go, like.
We're not.
No, I don't know what the mechanism is, but I would rather, this is, my whole problem with this, why I've been so frustrated with it is I want to put those into commercial.
Right.
If we can put them in commercial, and not put them in residential, I would rather see that live on. I think it's better for everybody.
and if you do the 5% on their
Well,
regular
I'm not even saying-
density,
I'm
I know,
not
I
saying
know.
Change the 5%, I'm saying,
Well-
how do you incentivize them to put it in the commercial?
What
area
I'm
versus
saying is-
residential?
Even if you leave it at 5% of the total density, you're really not incentivizing because there can still be that many.
You're not incentivizing
You know.
7% at base
I get-
density.
But I guess the other
It's the
side is
same
they
thing.
do get the 30, well,
Well,
You're not incentivizing at 7% of the base, so it's the same exact number.
Well, but actually, so because 7% of their base density,
Mhm.
the incentive is to put them in the commercial area is because what you're actually doing, what was it, out of the 4,500 roughly that they have,
It's 5%.
at 5% was 220?
Right.
230,
Yeah, 230.
and then the 7% on the 3,400 is
what if
238.
we only allowed them to take
Pretty
5?
close.
I mean, because then it definitely ties up to an MPDO anyways. They can only take the 5% of the total ERUs if it's put into
Into a commercial.
zone. And if they choose not to go into the residential zone or into the commercial zone, they get 5%.
No, because that doesn't work because we're basing off water meters.
Yeah, they would wreck the problem.
It's more,
So-
like, we're looking at one, but it's more fair to base it on the max density, whatever that number is.
okay.
I understand that, but I don't think you're incentivizing
But
them.
then throw this whole ordinance away anyways, because we already did one. We're not trying to put them in commercial.
Yeah,
At
here's,
the end of the day, that's, we
Yeah.
already got one that says 5%, and they take 5% of the area, that's how it's already written. So we're doing nothing to help
We're-
get those
we're-
into their commercial zones.
exactly. So, I mean, we go back to the original number that we had was 10%. That's an that's an
You
incentive,
talk about 10% of.
3,400. You're 340.
The
That's-
bonus-
that's a,
the-
you know-
Seriously, the bonus is actually completing the whole community in the
Right.
commercial. Like, is having the community and having them as a development and being able to sell them as a big, huge clump is what well, that's what the bonus is. No one's gonna go sell them and do nightly rentals and distribute. That's gonna be a house, that's gonna be a person. If you're gonna do a commercial development, you're clustering, period.
Right.
Right, so that's the bonus. That's what this ordinance does. It gives you the ability to cluster. Right?
Okay.
But they also, but the point is they can put that same amount throughout the entire residential neighborhood.
Yeah, but they can't. They can't build that development and sell that development. That's gotta be an individual person coming in
So,
and
but it's
applying
the
for a
city
loan.
as a whole, if they choose not to put it in there, the whole as a city is going to end up with all of that residential area with 300, whatever the number is,
Yeah.
versus all that in one location. That's what my point
It
is.
is, but what you're picking is a commercial development
Mhm.
or a bunch of people coming in here and filing individual.
Right.
I would much rather, I would rather figure out a way to get it so that they are in a commercial.
Well, this is a commercial.
Yeah, but this is the exact same as the other one.
No.
So then we're just relying on the developer to say, yeah, we're gonna do it in commercial.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, what they're gonna do is they're gonna specify in their MPDO, which they
They already
to identify where the location is.
Already have.
The neighborhood number, then they're gonna
Commercial
say
plan
this
area
is the
3.
number by this that's allowing us to cluster them in that area. Right?
Well, yeah, because
Right.
But that's it. That's what they get to do. They get to build a development and sell houses for more money than they would in an individual setting.
kind of what
It's
Joey's
commercial.
What Joey's saying too, or what he was saying earlier, if I'm not mistaken, is that by allowing it to be 5% of bonus
Oh,
density right off the start, that's also one of the incentives, is you get to access your bonus density right off the start. And then use your your catch-up contribution to do it. So it was 5% of the bonus density right off the start. That's like what, 220?
220.
The same as
Ish.
what they would do if they did 5% not. So that is still kind of an incentive because they have access to their bonus density right off the bat. Gives them access to 220 right off the bat. I mean, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
I mean, really? Is
Like-
explaining it?
I guess what's
But-
the. my whole
but if
point
you
is
just
I
wanna
want
do-
a commercial.
Right.
That's
That's where I'm
Absolutely, but and that would put it in there. I mean, that would put it in.
What's the,
So-
what's
so
the
Tyler,
incentive
think about it this
difference?
way. If they come in here and they elect to not put them in a commercial, which ordinance do they follow?
not the rental.
That's exactly what
If
they're.
they come in here and they say, I'm gonna cluster and make a community, which ordinance do they follow?
MPDO.
And this one.
The commercial.
It's a commercial nightly rental.
Right.
Development.
Because
This is
because,
for is to build that commercial and the CC&Rs.
Right.
And all the management of that thing, like that, it has everything in here, what they have to do to maintain a commercial.
Right.
development.
Heath, what's the number that, what's
Even though the numbers are different.
5%? What's 220 of the, if you were going to do that off of 34 that they have?
it's almost 7%.
And then what's 7% of that?
34, which one after?
Off of their base density, what's their base density at 7%? I just don't have my.
7%?
6.5.
238?
3498 times
So if we would've
So
just said
7% is the
is
is the
240.
equivalent of what they would put in a residential.
244 is 7%.
Yep.
Mhm.
If you go 6.5, you're 227.
What's the,
If you take 5% of the 4,400, you're 220.
what's the different incentive between base and,
And bonus?
yeah,
That's why I wanted to do that.
What's the-
because if
what's the
someone can't
difference?
Get the 30%, then they're.
So you have to do, so you have your base density,
Yep.
and then you have to do
Joey.
certain things.
Right.
to
If
have to
the
do
last,
a bonus.
if the last
That bonus
development
would be
in a
the
master
bonus
plan
area.
community was going to be
Build
this,
Park.
then what
So
you're
they
saying
did the skate
counts.
park,
But
Then they
they
get-
get a bonus.
if they make that their
Additional
first
units.
okay.
or
So-
second development,
The thing is, they've got to build out.
they're basing it off of
Give us those
the
at the top.
approved
So they have 40
future-
years.
Well, like,
future dwellings. So they're
I'm even saying they're approved.
40.
You know, like.
Four
4
years
years to
as
do
a
that.
catch up to
Someone
say,
comes
hey,
in
build that park
and
and
then you need
just build this
20%
and that.
of the 30% density
So-
bonus, then that's gonna be your total water connections and your total ERUs, right? So like you guys, both NPDOs that have been to the city have met the 30% requirement.
yes.
Yes.
If one comes in and they only can do 10% density bonus, then that total density equals their ERUs, which
I see
is the
what
same
you're
as water.
I
Yeah.
see what you're saying. You're saying
Yeah.
it's for a future MPDO.
Yes, for a future upcoming. The two we already have already met their bonus density.
That makes sense. Okay.
They've already done their plans. They've already met
I
bonus
was-
density.
I was
But we're
thinking what
saying-
you were
let's say
saying
a
was
new
if they don't
MPDO
achieve
comes in They
the
can't.
ability to have 30%.
They shouldn't get a,
I'm like,
yeah.
well, but if it's already built, then, and they're still achieving the 30%,
Yeah,
but you're saying on a new MPDO.
yes,
That makes plenty sense to me.
yeah.
It's the same number.
You're right.
The same numbers just keeps a
But-
future developer from coming in, getting an MPDO and not meeting their bonus density. The
So
two
we-
we already have meet their bonus.
So we want to base it on the bonus density and keep it at 5% versus moving it to 6.5 or 7 on the base. That way, if you don't get their bonus density, they don't get the extras. That makes sense? Is that what,
Yeah,
basically
I mean,
what we're
that's
down
what
to?
Joey's saying, that's
So
what,
you're
Yeah,
looking at
so-
175? Is that what you're?
No,
Yeah.
we're like
they get, you get it
220.
up front, yeah.
You're like at 220 if you give them 5% of their bonus density.
So I was always back, so Gary, just like I can see what you're saying is that if they come in, Fireline comes in and they say, we're just gonna distribute them. They've got 220 units they can put distributed. No matter, like, just off of our current
Off our
code, we just
current- We
passed,
just passed it, yep.
right? If they come in and they say they want a cluster, we use the max density, we're gonna give them 5%. That's still the same ERUs, right? But they're gonna still use the 220. What Ty's saying is we should do 6% of the max density because they can already distribute 220 nightly rentals. We should incentivize them to put it in one commercial portion. But if they're gonna elect either way, they're gonna elect one way or the other to start the process, right? Or by the time they get to the final MPDO, it's probably gonna be conceptual really, but.
Yeah, so 6% of the max.
6% of max is 264, basically.
Well,
It's-
again, I'm not even worried about the number. I really just feel like these need to go into commercial. And
Right.
at the beginning of a
But-
project, we have this opportunity. to
Exactly.
Build it right versus.
So what are we?
But what-
Different though, 'cause what-
so-
how do we, even,
You tell me how to get them so that they build in commercial because that works for them.
Yeah,
I'm-
that's
I'm
so
in.
that,
that's what
Whatever
I'm
that
trying to figure out too, because
Yeah.
this, if they elect it, right, as a developer, if I'm gonna develop the property, right, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna develop a nightly rental community because I'm gonna sell each one of them developments for more money than building a house.
regular home.
They keep them for themselves.
If they keep for themselves, that doesn't do it, right? But if they're just selling a regular house.
But they have to put into place
Yeah.
some other things.
They
like
do.
the
They
whole
have some-
management system. They have to build a whole bunch of amenities.
amenities.
And which also lowers their net profit because to put it in the community, we've got all this detail that says you gotta
I see what you're
have.
saying, Ty, because it still doesn't incentivize anybody to go
I mean,
do that.
I look at this 30 to 60 dwellings. We talked to from 200 to 300, which is the number we're
For
focusing in.
amenities.
It's 4 amenities. Those amenities are pool, health and or fitness facility, secured program, childcare, in-ground hot tub, community garden, perimeter trail. Like there's some substantial costs associated with what those amenities are to get to that. So I mean, I guess Joey, I understand, but the whole point of this was to figure out how to get them into commercial.
Yeah, how
I don't know
to,
how to do that either.
well, you give them enough, you give them a big enough percentage to do that. That's what we're here for. Figure out what percentage is enough to get them to incentivize enough to put it in the commercial versus do we cut them back and then they don't do it and we end up everywhere else. So if we want them in a commercial zone, we have to give them a few more numbers. That's the way I see it. I mean, if I'm a businessman, that's, if I, if you want me to do something, give me a reason to do it. So if we go off of 6% of bonus ERU, that comes up 264. If we do 6% of basic ERU, that's of course less, that you're closer to 7%. So, I mean, and then I like the bonus because then other MPDOs, if they can't meet the bonus, they don't get the extra numbers. I would rather see a little bit higher base it off the bonus versus a higher number
And
on a.
also incentivize them to reach the 30%, which benefits the whole.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's just my opinion. And I don't vote, so. Yes, Chuck.
Well, we're kicking the can around in little circles here a lot. Why don't we, and we're still focusing mainly on Firelight. Why don't we just ask Firelight what they can live with? They tell us, and then we see if we can live with what they say.
That's kinda-
That would allow
yeah.
a developer to determine what happens in the
He's
future.
not determining what happens, he's telling us what he can live with, and then we can say no.
I don't know
At
if we
least there'll be
can.
someplace.
But the point was, and that's, I
I
get
don't
that,
think we
Chuck,
should do that
but-
without.
but-
council
but
present.
Stacy Eaton sat here in the planning commission, and he's got, obviously have some ties to another MPDO out there, and he says, I don't want something being approved that passes for Firelight that then affects other developments, and
So that's why I
so.
said, like, I like this because it gives them the ability to choose. If we have 5% blanket across the community, it's the exact same for them. We're not binding them to anything, they're in the same seat.
Mhm.
But if they chose that, hey, we
Commercial.
want a cluster, we'll put it in commercial,
That's right.
and we have the.
They could go
choose,
for
and
it
we're gonna
too.
Choose
Yes,
whatever
I
that
totally
percentage.
agree.
So, I mean, that's an easy conversation to have because it's the same.
Right.
Which
It
I
is.
think what we're saying is-
But what we're here, we need to come up with a number.
Anybody can discuss.
I mean, I hate to say that, but that's what we're,
Make the motion.
I think what,
and
like, we're all doing the same thing, but
Right.
incentivizing someone to do this in a different fashion. You know, I don't know. I see exactly what you're saying.
yeah, and
Still learning.
I think,
Just raise the percent.
raise the, yeah,
on
if,
the space and
that's where I'm at. If you want to, if you want this in a commercial area, make it,
Here, I'll take a shot at the motion here.
okay.
Wow. I would move to approve the ordinance, nightly rentals and commercial development. I gotta find the exact words here. Nightly rental development. To, Heath, you wordsmith this, but to change the 5% to 7% if chose to be in commercial areas,
On
based off the total
Base ERUs.
bonus.
bonus,
Bonus.
because then they get the perk.
Right.
Incentivize them to go to the 30%, which gives more back to the citizens. And then to make the modifications highlighted in the.
and you probably need to point out that that the bonus density would be available to them immediately. Right.
Yeah, they would be able to, well.
I mean, they could access.
I
it.
just say for the total ERUs approved for the whole MP. So I think instead of using base, you'd say total ERUs.
So Daisy, did that make any sense at all?
What number did you say?
I said 7%
7% of the total?
of the total ERUs. I
Really,
didn't even look at it. What is it?
really.
Really?
So that's a difference of 40, right?
Yeah.
Basically 40 more if they do.
To
it in commercial
incentivize
as well.
them, yeah.
Plus the bonus density, right? So they
That's-
get
that-
40 plus whatever that bonus is.
That is the bonus. But it, well, they, Yeah.
It's 84.
Is based off of what was, I didn't,
88, if it's, yeah, if you're 5% off the 4,400, it's 220. If it's 7% of the base of their 4,400, it's 308. That makes sense? So. Okay, did that motion make sense to everybody here? 7% of their total bonus density to incentivize them to put it into a commercial area. All right, I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion?
I would like to say something.
Okay.
First of all, I'd like to ask the question, and I intended to ask Bruce this question, but I'm going to ask Heath. Put on your city cap. What is the very worst case scenario that could happen if we have this go in there and we have a deal fall through between Darcy and Westbrook, or we have an economic downturn and all of a sudden we're overbuilt in this area? They're all also talking about reducing the capacity for Zion, doing reservations there. In Moab, it knocked them down to 2017 levels. If something happened, what is the worst case scenario?
And let me ask, if this development was built
Yes.
at these numbers, I think what you would have is you would have a bunch of homes out there, and if they had not been sold to individuals, and the developer would likely either put them up for sale or rent them. Either way, I think that you would have homes out there. how it would be utilized, there would still be an HOA and stuff like that. So
And I think
to me, it might be median income housing.
I'm just gonna say, go to 600 North and go down through that last dip where there's that 3-story building. There's HOA, you can do nightly rentals in there, but they can also long-term rentals. That's where Drury's lived for a while, was in there. So I think you just end up with apartments in essence, right? Because they're held.
Or condo, it's not really an
Yeah,
apartment, it's
condos.
much nicer and bigger than an apartment.
Well, with-
Yeah.
And it'd be like condominium complex.
Right.
All right,
Probably.
so then personally, I go back in history where we had a conceptual, nightly rentals weren't included, we had a preliminary, we had a development agreement, and finally nightly rentals gets worked in as a conditional permit. And then on January, Planning Commission submits to the city council, they don't recommend it. City council declines to vote on it. So we had a vote, a lot of it was based upon compliance with the general plan. And all of a sudden, we're not revisiting all this stuff that, whether we want it or not, we're just working on a number right now. And in reality, we have a moratorium because we want to limit nightly rentals, but we just booked ourselves up for this situation to have more nightly rentals rather than limit them. So the residents in the town have more restrictions and more limitations, but by consolidating, which is what Ty's saying, and which is, I'm not arguing with that concept, but we're going above and beyond to get more in rather than less on the residential side. So if you want to compare, we know what we have with the residential side, okay? We haven't had complaints. The people that have nightly rentals in this town right now haven't had complaints. They need a fire permit with the new ordinance. Will they need a fire permit with the other? No. Will they need city council's approval like the residents need? No. Will they need public opinion with 3 going out? They don't have any of that. And so we've got 175 units. Even if the amount was an average of 6 per resident, that's 1,000 people with 1 person in charge and a maintenance guy on call. And that doesn't work for me. I mean, I've got timeshares and I have security people down there, and this is just 180 units. Security, I got 2 people at the front desk, and I have a maintenance guy on call. And here we just got 1 maintenance guy 30 minutes away and 1 person at the desk on this particular ordinance. So, and let's face it, my hat's off to Darcy and his group, okay? They're trying to make as much money as they can. And this is more profitable for them to put nightly rentals in. I understand that. And if I were in their shoes, I would be doing exactly what they're doing. So I commend them for all the flexibility that they have given us in the past as well. But I still got to sit here and say, is this the right thing to do for the city? And we didn't discuss that tonight. We talked about a number. So that's where I'm at. I don't want to have, when you're dealing with the consolidation, you've got the commercials, businesses. Now you got the rock shops in here. You've got the outfitter shops in here. You're attracting commercial business to support tourism. But if you had them in the houses on the other side, now you're dealing with people that are going to put a CVS in, a doctor's office, an urgent care, and things like this that will cater to the residents of this town and get us to stop going to Hurricane and Laverkin. So that's kind of where I'm at on this thing. So I've expressed my opinion.
You said something else that was pretty important. Is every single dwelling need to have a fire inspection every year in this subdivision? Because if the residents need that.
If it's commercial, it'll fall under that. There's a commercial fire inspection on an annual basis.
Every annual?
Yeah. So, but if you just let them decide to put the 5% by residents, how long is it going to take before we get up to that 200? It's not going to, we've got the distance restrictions, and it could be 15 or 20 years before we get that many in here. So if we want to limit nightly rentals, the best way to do it is not to, approve this thing. And
It comes, so I'm hearing you, but what it's coming down to is back to no commercial development in Tokerville. That's what I'm hearing. We don't have any, we've never had
well,
any. Every time we want a commercial development in Tokerville, we have the same.
I want to make sure the commercial development is for the Tokerville
Right.
residents and not for the tourists. And I want to make sure that if we're generating revenue through nightly rentals, it might as well come from the citizens of Tokerville rather than investors that we don't even know about. The investors are going to make the money. The developer is going to make money when they sell them. What's happening to the residents in Tokerville? They're getting told you can have less.
And meanwhile, the residential home that they bought in a residential zone is becoming commercialized because their neighbors on the right and the left have a nightly rental. That's my.
Not with the new ordinance. They've got to go 500 feet away. Or that's 6 houses down the road.
300 feet.
2 lots.
No,
300
it's
feet.
500. It's 500.
It's 300. It's just in our thing. It's 300 feet.
Mm,
Need to look at that one. It's 300 feet. I saw it
I
tonight.
still think so.
300 feet on the
Well, I just
survey.
went, the numbers that I just ran, it's basically off the 4,400, so that's not the exact number,
Right.
but it's like 44 per percent. So if you go to 6, you're at 264. So you get a bonus of 44, roughly, off of 4,400, which I know that's not the exact number. Their numbers, I think you have it tied, 4,590.
4590.
Right.
So
4590.
So but my point is, it's really close. We're talking.
I understand that.
44,
And all I'm saying is,
47.
45, 47.
all I'm saying is,
Yeah, the whole
I'm-
last,
I'm-
the whole last
I'm-
meeting was exactly what Gary was talking about.
so I'm just sharing my opinion. I know I know the direction this is
And I
going, but I
understand
just have to
that.
let this out.
And if we were trying to approve 300 gun shops, I might have the same feeling. I don't own a nightly rental, so I'm not trying to persuade not to have more nightly rentals. So that's, what I'm saying. That's what I'm hearing from you. I own a nightly rental. I don't want more nightly rentals.
Oh, it has nothing to do with me.
So,
It's
Well,
nothing to do with me.
yeah, but if I had 300 new gun shops come in, I'd say, I don't want 300 gun shops either. So that's just, we can look at it that way,
I understand
So,
that, but keep in mind, I'm getting prepared to build a second Airbnb,
Right.
and I voted on only one, and I gave that up. So I'm losing money on the vote that I made. So I don't want anyone to think that
Right.
I'm thinking about myself at this point.
Well,
So
and
I
one
let-
thing to consider though, Gary, is that when this went through planning commission, and including the other nightly rental ordinance, the intent of planning commission with the residential nightly rental was not to have big MPDOs have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of residential nightly rentals. That's why when they put in I asked the question at planning commission, I said, if you put a cap on culinary water connections, right? And we use that number at 721, and we use that number, that is going to cap the number of available nightly rental permits throughout residential Tokerville to 36 permits. Do you like that number? They said yes. I said, that means that for a very long time, we will not be able to elevate that. And they said yes.
I voted for that.
Right. And so what
I
I'm
voted for
saying
that.
is that points to the intent of residents is to not have hundreds and hundreds of nightly rentals in this city next door to them, on the right, on the left, 500 feet away, 300 feet back, whatever it is. They want it limited to that. And I could be wrong, right? But when you did
But
that.
that's what Todd was pointing out.
You guys were
Right.
okay with limiting the number of nightly rental permits in the
Yeah.
city to 36, with the understanding that it was going to take a very long time to get ahead of that. With this ordinance, if you guys cannot come to some sort of way to put these in commercial, then what's the point of planning commission saying we want to limit this to about 36 of these permits citywide?
But let me correct that though, because if they do the development,
Mhm,
and if they get the 45, 47,
mhm.
then they're gonna get, they get 227 added into the pool, right?
In-
Into the
Only
pool.
in a commercial area though,
No, no,
not
I'm talking-
out throughout
No,
the
I'm
city.
talking if they didn't do the commercial, they didn't pass, they don't do this, and they're like,
Mhm.
fine, now they're all culinary connections
Yep.
being counted, which would be 227 that would get added to the pool.
Yep.
Which is interdispersed anywhere, so they could get a single 500 feet and all the other rules. Or you put it in the commercial zone, I'm concerned, and the number that you guys are trying is 318, is the difference between the two, so.
Right.
90 more.
But it could
homes.
take 15 years to get up to
So
227.
it keeps them, so it keeps,
The drawing board.
I agree.
right.
It would be incremental as they did subdivisions if you did it that way, like, oh, we have a new subdivision, and so here's 100 more, here's 100 more.
Yep.
So it would grow instead of being so instantaneous.
So anyway, I just needed to get that off my chest.
Glad you did.
And I understand the other side of the coin too.
Yeah. 318, yeah. And those are, and his is jiving.
Who did the math right? Is that what you guys are seeing? Like,
Yes,
oh, are my
we're
numbers
seeing
right?
if we did the math right.
We know you love math. Todd's always like, if my math is
No, I
right.
don't.
Who's gonna get done first, the guy going on or us?
Maybe we pay the attorney by the hour.
Yeah, start drawing stick figures.
Man.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Those are the exact numbers based and bonus. And I rounded, I mean, if the number came out to be
0.6.
209.88, I rounded it to 210.
So I'm way comfortable, like, I don't even have a conversation about which ERUs to base it off of, because I think it's easier to base it off their total ERUs than try to separate them out. Because in the future, what we're gonna be able to see is there's X amount of water connections. Are we
So
okay
go off
with
the
that?
bonus.
So you're good off of the bonus.
I am, just because that, going
Mhm.
into the future, nobody's ever looking back to figure out what the base was. We can always look and say, we have this many water connections.
Worst case scenario.
Okay. And your motion was 7%?
I said 7%. If you, I mean, at 318, I would amend my motion to 6% to incentivize them. It basically gives them another, I didn't separate the two between them, but it's like 50 extra units. Is that roughly right?
60.
About 60.
It's 100
60.
more than planning commission suggested.
Well, not off of
Yeah.
that. Oh, yeah, because you went off
5%
base.
off base.
Yeah, because you went off base.
Base
But-
5%,
but-
so we were
But I
trying
don't
to,
think planning commission
Just in thought of
caught
You're right.
they had the other one.
right,
Right.
They could do-
which would be 220.
227. So
Which is
227 to
46.
273, 46.
So, and incentivizing by 46 to go into the commercial zone, right? Because they're entitled to 227 for our ordinance. And if we went to 6%, that would give them an extra 46. So 273. I would amend my motion to that.
All right, I have a motion.
Wait a minute.
You said.
Sorry.
So throw it in.
My original. So much discussion.
No, I just got two other things
All right, Gary's not
about
done
this. I'm not done yet,
Sorry,
okay?
Gary.
Excuse me, okay. All right, so looking at this ordinance here, on item J3, it says something about the marketing, maintenance, and cleaning to be done by a singular third party, but then it has to be distinct, separate and distinct from property management. Then on 4, it says property management performing these items. So what,
That was a Bruce change they wanted.
I don't understand.
Okay, so you could have a property management company who's providing property management for the master association, but they can't be the one who's doing the nightly rentals. It has to be one that's doing expressly, I think is what Bruce meant by putting that in there, is that you have to have a separate company that does just the marketing for this nightly rental complex and the renting of them and the maintenance.
Should that read then to be performed by a singular third party property management? Because you're referring down there to that
Okay.
singular third party as property management.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with saying third-party property management.
I think it would clarify it. And then the last thing that I think we need to take a look at is item I1. I'm sorry, the limit of 10 people in each dwelling. Okay, so my concern there is if you have a studio or a one-bedroom and you're going to allow 10 people in there. So,
4 bedrooms,
well, are they all going to be 4 bedrooms?
no larger than 4 and no more than.
No
10.
more than 10, but
That's
do
Are
you
you
think-
wanting like a
That's in
per
residential.
room limitation? or
well,
some
I
sort
would,
of-
I would say
Max, and that's our residential.
I would
one.
say-
It says no more than 10 guests.
maximum of,
That's the standard. It's no more than 10 guests.
yeah, but that's for, if you've got a one-bedroom in there, you're not going to get 10 people in there. You'll have a lot of people.
The
trying to get
residential
10
says
in
the
there.
same thing. It says, it doesn't say like, oh, if you're a one bedroom, you can have 2 people. If you're a 2, it just
So-
says you could never, whether you have a studio or you have the biggest house on the block, you can have no more than 10 people. This just says this exact same thing. It's just a max. It just says no matter what, whether it's big or it's small, you just can't have more than 10. Fire code's gonna tell them.
No, fire code won't say that. So all I'm suggesting is if you want, to put down 2 persons maximum plus 2 guests per bedroom. So if it's
What if it's 2 parents and 2 kids in a bedroom?
in one bedroom, that's 4. If one bedroom, you can get 4, 2 bedrooms, you can get 6, 3 bedrooms, you can get 8, and 4 bedrooms, you can get 10. Otherwise, you're gonna have people cramming in there.
No, I know
Okay.
that fire code, basically the Hurricane Valley Fire Code weighed in on our regular one many years ago. And I believe that's why we've got similar into our existing code now. So wanted to.
Okay.
And they're gonna be
them.
having an
If-
annual
if-
fire.
And they will, yeah, they'll have.
If you
at
don't
the
think
very
it's an
beginning-
issue, that's
At the
fine.
very beginning, they need to have a fire review. And the fire's not gonna sign off on it if they're allowing more than that, say. they
More
have-
than 10. right?
Say they want to
Yeah,
have
they'll
that
do
one
the square
bedroom,
footage. The fire
Yeah.
department will do the square footage.
and then they'll have their annual review. I think they're gonna have to have their annual review yearly
Yeah, they
on these.
do. Commercial has to have that.
Okay, so I'm ready for an amended motion.
Have it
I got
here.
one more question if I can.
Yes.
On item M, where we're prohibiting the parking of trailers, et cetera, are we requiring them to provide a parking lot or something so they don't end up in the neighborhoods?
I think that's built in there.
It is, and if it is, I didn't see it.
I think it says, and correct me if I'm wrong, no off-street parking.
We have a
Well, yeah,
separate
but
ordinance.
It says prohibit the parking of any vehicles, trailers, or watercraft on streets within the nightly rental development. So
Because
how-
that's all that you can control.
Right, but how are
We have an off-street, we have a parking ordinance that would prohibit parking of a vehicle for an extended period of time.
Right, I understand that, but you're forcing them into the neighborhoods
Or
by us.
asking if nightly rental developments are going to be required to have like a parking garage or a parking lot. Like,
Right.
where are these things going? They're going to
Yeah.
bring them. Where are they going?
That's my question.
Yeah. He's like, where are they going?
Parking for 4 vehicles.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, but that's not,
That's vehicles, not trailers.
yeah, that's,
Trailers.
I mean, it depends on how you guys arrange the parking. If you're gonna do it tandem, then yeah, maybe you could get a trailer in there, but if you don't,
And they're going to have to say what they're bringing with them.
well, no, I know,
They
but
rent 'em. They're gonna have to say-
as part of the,
Require them to say what vehicles.
so my question would be, as part of the development of a commercial nightly
Right.
rental, do
Do we
we
have
want to
a
require them to have
Parking lot
a
somewhere.
parking lot for trailers and things like
Scott,
that?
you had,
Yeah, any, the 2 ideas we've kicked around is an extra parking lot space. There is some already in our preliminary plans. So you should amend that so that trailers and watercraft cannot park on the public streets. That covers it.
That's already covered in our original.
Yeah, it's in the regular.
That's covered in your ordinance.
It's in our regular one.
It's good.
It is?
Yes.
How's it read?
Which is
So-
pretty normal.
But I think the other thing to think about, so this is
It-
this
yeah,
is a
it's-
commercial building in a commercial zone, which
Yeah.
means it has to be reviewed, which means they have to accommodate parking.
Parking.
So at some point, staff's gonna have the opportunity to say, oh, there's this many rooms, you're gonna have to add this much parking to accommodate it because it.
Yeah, they're going to have ADA parking. They're going to have all this stuff.
Because
That'll
it's in a
happen in
commercial, it's not
engineering
residential.
review.
So we're gonna cover some of that with the
With
commercial design.
Review by-
Make it horizontal
Yeah.
motel parking.
vertical,
Jeez.
vertical parking.
It'll be addressed during
Well,
it.
you should go, yeah, you're right.
All right.
Vertical parking.
Mayor, take control.
Okay, sorry. So we're back to a motion.
So,
Unless Gary, did you get all
Gary-
of yours? Do you have any more? Okay.
so I don't know if I'm gonna remember everything, but I'm gonna strike my last motion.
Okay.
I'm gonna start over with a new motion that,
Hold
would identify that in the commercial area, you would get 6% of the total approved ARUs for the MPDO. Let's see, is there anything else that needed to be modified from that?
Gary had, in the third party, we need to change the,
J3.
Yep.
To include the word in the third sentence, third-party property management company.
I would add that to my motion as well.
okay.
Was there anything else you needed, Gary?
You did base density.
You did.
Bonus
Bonus.
density at
At
6%.
Yeah.
6%.
Okay, we have a motion.
We have a second.
We have a second. Do I have to ask any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
All right, we have 4-1 approval. All right, we're down to calendar of events. Tocqueville City Neighborhood Market was our first one coming up for the year on Saturday at 9 a.m. Please come out and support that. Memorial Day presentation, Thursday, May 25th. It is 6 p.m.
Preparation presentation.
Oh, that's preparation. Yes,
May I
Thursday.
speak to that?
Yes, you may. Go ahead, Chuck.
Okay, I'll be inbound from Colorado on that day. You listen to this one, Afton, because it affects you.
Thanks,
Okay,
Scott.
I'll be inbound from Chicago, from Colorado on that day, and I will be there in time for
Okay.
that preparation. But I would also request that the preparation include a dry run, not just a preparation, but a rehearsal of this, in which we have electronics at work.
Are you talking about today?
No, I'm talking about on the,
switch did get flipped.
from the 25th of May.
I know, I'm just saying, are you saying about the?
The electronics today
Yeah,
are.
we went back and forth.
Is our PA big enough to cover?
Yes, yep. And yeah, it's the same as the commercial one we've been running.
Perfect.
So that's
What
the,
happened today is we didn't know there was a switch on the side of the building that we had to flip to get power to that whole side. So that's what happened.
That's why we got a whole day advance on this one next
Yeah,
week.
so we got the sound system.
that's a Thursday and we have all the way till Monday. So we'll make sure we get that working.
Once we had an all electric solar system, we won't have that problem with it.
So Memorial Day presentation, we have a Memorial Day at the cemetery at 10 a.m. I will be there conducting.
What's the, I'm just curious.
So we have some speakers. We have a few presentations. We have musical number. We have taps and a speaker. So
You got an MC.
we have an MC.
That's
Chuck's-
10 a.m.?
10 a.m. Is that, we're good with 10 a.m.? It's not too late?
That's the same time.
Okay, we're good. 4th of July celebration, Center Street Park, 7 a.m. We have a parade first. Starts where we normally start on Old Church and runs south on Ash Street Drive down to Westfield. So that's our parade, and then we will have our booths and our breakfast down at the city park. If it's anything like last year, it's going to be a smash. That was awesome. Last year was absolutely, I believe we have a rolling car show also.
Did we decide city councils to be there at 6 a.m.?
Yes, there's always plenty to do.
What goes in the booth?
They've got all sorts of stuff. They had frozen ice cream, they had ice cream and treats and fishing for the kids, and they just had a lot of booth stuff, so.
Did staff take care of the food for that
Yes.
last year? It seemed like we ran out of something at the end. I don't remember what that was.
We ran out. Were you here last year?
Yes, I was.
We
Did we
did
have
that.
everything?
No, I think we were good.
Yeah, we were okay.
And we had some extras. We had
We had
extras.
extra watermelon.
Remember those
24.
team that fire department came later and we had enough to feed them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were great.
Hey, Afton or Daisy, on the neighborhood market, you don't have the times on the flyer.
Yeah, let's get 9 a.m. added to
Yeah,
that.
that should be 9 a.m.
And then the sign says farmer's market. Do we want to change that from
Yeah, we have
farmer's
new ones
market?
ordered, but those are just ones we have.
No, I'm talking about
The electronic sign?
The electronic signs.
Oh, the electronics. we
Out
can
on the
change
street.
that. I documented what
Yeah.
was out there, so you ordered new ones. Well, yeah.
And then we have the 24th celebration. The church takes care of 99% of that. We're just announcing it and making sure the citizens are aware of the celebration on the 24th.
We're gonna let them use all our stuff, no charge.
Yeah, we usually do let them use the park and all the stuff, so that's our donation to the 24th of July. Is there anything else any city council member would like to bring up at this time? Motion to adjourn. All right,
Second.
we are adjourned at 8:25.